to episode 139 of Cowboy Shit with Ted and Wacey. This is episode 9 of season number 6. We're already in the 6th season, Wacey. How about that?
Oh, what a world, man. Time flies when you're having fun.
And so we've had this conversation a couple times, but the seasons are probably not relevant to most people, except for on iTunes when we don't get the numbering right, and then it like gets buried at the bottom of the list, and people are like, "Oh, where's your latest show?" Oh, it's lost in the internet
It's there.
because we
It's
didn't
lost in
label
the
it
depths.
properly.
The
'Cause
depths
you
of
gotta label
podcast
them.
land.
Got to label them properly, so that's the only reason why I know this, because I keep track of it here, so I know where the heck what's going on.
It's been a heck of a run.
We are.
We're approaching 400,000 downloads on the show.
Oh
Lots of
yeah,
things
that
happening.
too.
Slowly getting there. Happening.
We got some. It's getting warm out again here in
Mhm.
Canada, which we love. It's probably getting warmer wherever you are too, unless you're in the southern hemisphere. Then it's probably cooling down. But not a lot of you Southerners really listen to this show.
Not a whole bunch.
Southern hemispheres, except for our Aussie friends and maybe a couple of Kiwis. So we thank you for listening. From that far away, haven't been there in a while. Maybe
Dude,
get back someday.
did you get fucked up by the time change?
No, not at all.
Not
Actually,
at
a little
all?
bit. I slept in like the next day. That was it.
Yeah, I found it like I was like more than other times. I felt like way more fucked up from it, which is really weird. But
Really?
yeah,
Probably
yeah.
the BC. Probably the
BC
BC.
left. Apparently, BC is thinking about switching to not like to Saskatchewan style.
Well, I think a lot
They're
of people should. I think it's really unnecessary.
Well,
The
they're
whole
waiting
thing.
on a vote from I think the state of Washington. Because I think Washington has to agree with BC, like has to do the same thing because there's so much trading and stuff done between the two.
Yeah.
So, but it's like probably gonna happen, which is crazy.
Huh. That'd be kind of neat though. So then
Oh,
what
I
would that put us? That wouldn't put us 2 hours off of BC time if Alberta changes a bunch, would it? Be the same or 1 hour?
I think it'd be the same. I think it'd be 2 hours in the 2 hours in the winter time when it falls
shit.
back.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. I
That'd
think.
be-
I
That's
think.
Sounds kind of made up too, though. Maybe that's wrong. Maybe we're
Maybe it sounds made
overthinking
up.
this.
It
I
may
think
have.
it'd be the same. Well, no, it's never the same. So it'd be one
So-
or none. I don't know.
So it's 3. So it's 4 o'clock here now, and it's 5 o'clock in Alberta. 3:40, right? Or
Yeah.
4:40. Are you at? So if you fall backwards, one, it'd be the same time.
Huh.
If we stay the same, right? You'd be at 3:40 now, and we'd be at 3:40. So it'd be the same actually.
Yeah.
It's only be
Same
1
as
hour in the summertime. Yeah.
Yeah. One.
There we go. We figured it out.
Anyways.
Time
Oh
change.
fuck. No, I was not that bad off. What are we going? What's up this week? So what's up this week? So we had a good chat last week, and I got a lot of positive comments back from a lot of people in the industry. And I was surprised that and it might still be coming. I haven't been around folks and haven't been in any events yet, but I was surprised we didn't get more negative feedback from that opening of the show. I had to apologize to Jill after. I was like, "Hey, I know you work for the Stampede, but we kind of did this, so sorry about that."
Mhm.
Sorry once again, Jill, about that part of it, but it was something that had to be said. I think, and I don't think there's enough of this honest feedback sometimes in a public forum for rodeo and Western sports in our industry. So, keeping up with that theme, let's get right on to Rodeo Houston, Wacey. So
Some
the
shit
story-
went down.
yeah. So the story is, Bo Cooper gets called for a barrier penalty. Doesn't really truly break the barrier. It's a malfunction. Loses $50,000 over the process. He's disappointed, obviously, but there's no replay. There's no way to overturn this call as far as
The way the
There's no
rules
way to-
go or anything. There's nothing,
Right?
there's nothing you can do. Yeah. Like, there's
Actually,
no-
and I got to look at this thing that Sean sent too. I need to find that.
yeah. Well, like you're saying, like without the use of instant replay, and I think the PBR is the only like Western sport that uses any type of instant replay, whether it be for calling slaps or can you still challenge rise in the PBR, right? Whereas
yeah, and even in
don't-
Canada, we even
Yeah.
have that in Canada too.
yeah, so you
Part of
can't.
the deal.
It's too bad, especially when there's this much money on the line. Because like Bo went from winning like over 50,000 to only $5,000 towards the
So
standings. So I mean,
Here's calfroping.com. After the Bo Cooper incident at Rodeo Houston, let's look at PRCA's rule on barrier failure. A failed barrier cost Canadian title roper Bo Cooper $50,000 at Rodeo Houston. on March 19th, 2023. What could happen or what should have happened? So clearly does not break the barrier. The neck rope clearly off the calf at Rodeo Houston with Bo Cooper still behind the barrier line. 2021 Resistol Work of the Year. He had the best Riley Webb's 8.9 second run to win 50 grand. 8.5 could have skyrocketed to the top of the world standings to give him a legitimate shot at his first NFR. Instead, Tomlin announced a 10-second penalty for broken barrier, stunning Cooper and fans everywhere. So this comes from Jade Corkle. He says, I don't know Bo Cooper, but I sure hope they make this right. I know they can take a barrier off or put one on after the rodeo's over. I've seen them do it. So no better day than today. That comes from 3-time world champion healer Jade Corkle. Advocating for an overturned call or the just an instant replay. Cowboy Channel is the best thing to ever happen to rodeo, and they are the cause to about to cause rodeo to make some changes. Commented Justin Moss. Interesting. Shane Hanchey commented as well, who's also somebody who Bo Cooper has been learning a lot from lately, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
that Bo's
spent a lot of time down there, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Jade Corkle, if you knew him, you'd love him like we all do. Hanchy said, "What's right is right, and this was a bad call." And this is coming from Hanchy, world champion title roper. We don't see them as obvious in our event as you guys do from time to time. This one hurts. It hurts bad. The judge could have made it right. The judge could have made it right. He had the chance, but instead chose to look Bo in the eye and tell him that he'll be able to sleep tonight knowing he didn't make the wrong call. Oh, boy. That's brutal. Calf Roping has reached out. CalfRoping.com has reached out to PRC leadership for comment on the issue and will await a response. Here's the rule book if barrier system failure. If the barrier fails to work, but the flag operates correctly and the time is recorded, the contestant or team will receive that time. Barrier penalty will be waived unless barrier is obviously beaten by contestants. Wow.
Damn, so that's right there in the rule book.
Hanchy says he got hosed. The neck rope pulled off the calf. The barrier never released. He shouldn't have got the +10. He should have won Rodeo Houston.
Damn.
Brutal. But coming from Bo Cooper, he says, thanks, everyone. I appreciate every one of you being behind me. Pretty cool to know that there was this many people that were pulling for me. Biggest moment of my rodeo career. Wish the feeling of throwing my hands in the air knowing I won it was a little different. That's something I'll never get back. Brutal.
Yeah, dang.
So some of the judges in PRCA are actually salaried employees. So I wonder, some are contractors, and some are doing this on the weekends as something fun to do on the weekends, right? Like it's kind of, it's tricky. You don't want to crap on somebody that's like, some of them are down here volunteering their time sometimes. Like it's not, we've talked to a few judges on the show before, and they're not really making a lot of dough, but
no. And there's the human error thing. Like people make mistakes, but when something's like this is that blatant, like you gotta do the right thing, you'd think, right?
And I don't know if there's more time involved that is needed for like a review, but I don't know if he was last out, if he just needed to, if the judge needed some more time to say like, hey, this isn't right. Like, but he might not have been watching that close or didn't think it was, I don't know. The judge at the time can't go back and they can't, like, how do they watch on the replay and be like, oh no, that's messed up. Like I got to take that back. They don't have this picture of this angle showing what's going on.
The Cowboy Channel angle
immediately,
sure.
right?
Yeah. And the heat of the moment. Yeah.
And I don't know what the production limits are at Houston, if they'd be willing to put in their own replay, or I don't know what the procedure is, I guess, on these replays. We've talked about this a lot of times with the PBR, but the PBR can do things like adding replay challenges because they put on all of their own events. The PRCA would have a difficult time putting in a replay challenge or or instant replay because they don't put on their own events. And the only staff from the PRCA or any kind of employees that are probably at any rodeo are the judges. And they're not the production people. They're the judges. So I don't know. I feel awful for Bo. This would have been a career-defining moment, a career Kickstarter. We saw Zeke Thurston kickstart his career with the win in Houston in 2015. This kind of what it could have been a similar moment for Bo. His name has been making some rounds already because of this issue. So, I mean, he might get a favorable call or two down the road. Maybe, hopefully, for his sake, he
Yeah,
does, right? Like somebody trying to pay him back a bit, but
still not going to change the fact that he got
yeah,
hosed
got
out of it.
hosed.
Well, and even
Yeah,
too, like, not saying that this may work out that way, but may be his only opportunity ever in that position to win Rodeo Houston. It may
maybe,
not
you
come
never
again,
know.
right?
Hope
Like,
not, but could happen.
so it's tough. It's just
Yeah,
tough to see, and it's kind of like, again, we talk about the whole professional rodeo Cowboys Association. It's just like it's a pretty amateur thing to have to happen at a professional level event,
at
especially
that
at the scale,
level,
especially with that kind of money on the line. Like it's tough to
50
see.
grand.
Yeah.
So it would be great if they would change the ruling. I don't know if there's a later replay review, or maybe I don't know. We've talked about the markout rule before too, but maybe there's a I don't know. I just hope there's something that comes of this, that maybe this is the final straw, that something changes. And I hope that enough people like Corkill and like Shane Hanshey step up and talk about this to where the right people hear it and listen and understand that something has to happen. So,
Well,
and this,
hopefully eventually we hear something from the PRCA. Like where there's been crickets from them since this happened.
yeah.
Like usually,
Well,
like you
they
look at
know they
any other,
screwed up.
well, you look at any other professional sport though. You look at like in the NHL when there's been like wrong calls in games about goals or like other, like there's an immediate reaction or immediate press release like addressing that incident. Like it doesn't
Talking
let
about
it
what's
sit there
going
and
on.
marinate. Yeah, they let to keep the people in the know, right? So I don't know. Hopefully hear from him soon.
Um, yeah, and rodeo Houston, all they have is fastest times and high scores. And then their one the one quick story from Houston talks about Riley Webb winning the Houston title.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, that's pretty bad.
Yeah, not a good deal. So
Yeah, the feature
hopefully,
story is Riley Webb is feature. Oh boy. Anyways, I hope that something comes of this. Who knows
mm-hmm.
what will happen? I guess we'll see.
Mm-hmm. And it won't be the last we hear from Bo. He's a handy kid. He had a lights out CFR too. I think he won 2 or 3 rounds there. He's on
Yeah.
the right track to be a star. So
Well, and good news too. Jeremy Bueller, another major win for
yeah,
that guy. Yeah, so
yeah.
he goes, wins the 100 grand at the 100 and some thousand at the what was it, the World Series, right back in,
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know when that was now. It was like 2011 or something, like a long time ago. He wins that big check there. He's a world champion in 2016, and
Won a few
I
go
don't,
rounds last year.
yeah. So another big win for Jeremy Bueller, a guy that shows up on the big stages and gets those big checks, makes those big wins. So congrats to Bueller. Another thing coming out of Houston is at almost $2 million in prize money too. That I haven't looked at that in a long time in Houston. That's pretty awesome. Also, just like we talked about with Calgary, though, I wonder. I got to look at how long Houston has paid 50,000 to win. I wonder when they're going to up that. We're all
Yeah.
making less based on inflation lately, so Houston's still a great show, but I wonder what the growth looks like for that. And I also,
Well,
you know what, I heard about this is the other thing about Calgary. I heard they're changing the format, so there's 10 pools. No, sorry, 3 pools of 10 contestants. So now there's 30 contestants instead of about 22. I think they had last year,
oh
24.
wow.
So there's 3 pools, I think, for the first time, and no wild card now. So I think that I forget what I got to look at what the exact format is, but I've
Hmm.
heard there's some changes to the format coming to Calgary. And just as a question, I hope that they pay $100,000 this year, because if there's not 100,000 this year for the winners, I'm gonna be curious why.
Yeah. What the hell?
I was curious last year, and I don't know if
Yeah.
I ever asked that question to the right people, but
Well, and even looking back to how successful it was last year, like it was a good year for the Stampede.
well, even the what was it? The NFR, was it the COVID year in Texas? They announced like halfway through they're still going to match the prize money. Like if you know you're having a good year, by fucking day 5 if you're having a good year.
100%.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
make
that and
it
that and that
right.
brings shout out to the Ponoka Stampede for their $75,000 dash for cash this year. That's
Yeah,
gonna be more than Stampede was last year.
true. And in
Like
Ponoka,
in
a town of
Ponoka,
6,000
a
people.
fraction of the size. So
Yeah,
I saw that the other day on their social media. So I want to give Ponoka a shout out for making shit
and
happen. They upped the prize money in the rodeo
55,000 an event.
too, right? Yeah.
Yeah, they did. Yeah,
So
yeah. So if
kudos to them
Ponoka
for
can do
making
it,
shit
I would
happen.
sure as hell hope that Calgary can do it. So
Yeah. Well, and
we'll
even
see.
same with Houston, right? They're
Yeah,
selling out the
very
barn
true.
for 70,000 people to watch concerts each night. Like there's
Yeah,
it's
but
one of those things where
yeah.
stuff's happening.
But last time I was at Houston, there was not a lot of people there for the tie-down roping. So,
Mm-hmm.
so I can get why they might not prioritize some of that. But anyways, Wacey got a really big show this week. A lot of good stuff here. Good visit. I mean, for anyone that tuned in here that was here to listen to here here to get right to the story with Melissa and Alex. I'm sorry we just rambled on about some Calgary shit, but hopefully maybe we'll put some links in here, Wace, on like when the actual interview starts. People can like skip through our bullshit if they want to. Sometimes I don't know. Anyways, thanks to our friend Max Thompson for lining this one up. That was a heck of a chat. Again, this is Cowboy Shit with Ted and Wacey. Thanks for tuning in this week. We'll catch up with you here on the other side.
Cowboy Shit is a proud partner of Horse Expo, which is back at Westerner Park in Red Deer from April 28th to 30th. We'll be at the largest equine trade show in Western Canada, and we want to see you there. Come down to the Cowboy Shit Round Pen to watch the Trainer Showdown or check out the clinics, presentation lounges, art show, and more. Get your tickets now at horseexpo.ca using promo code CS20 to save $20 off your Horse Expo ticket. We'll see you there.
Cowboy Shit with Ted and Wacey. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening. We got a really big show lined up here today, Wacey. We've got
a little out of our strike zone for types of guests, but it's gonna be a good one.
But you know what the cool part is? It's all extreme sports. Like everybody in here has done something really extreme and done it at very high levels. So we're gonna get right into it. Looking forward to this show here, but we've got a 3-time Olympian in the skeleton and a bronze medalist. She's been on the Amazing Race Canada. That was in season 6 for 10 years. She was a host for CBC during the Calgary Stampede and the road to the Olympic Games. She grew up in a rodeo family with her parents raising bucking horses, and now is a barrel racer herself and has been for a long time. Please welcome to the show, Melissa Hollingsworth.
Thanks, guys.
Hey, Melissa. Great to see you again.
Nice to see you too, Max.
For those who are watching on our YouTube page, the Sharp Dressed Fella with us is our good pal Max Thompson. Max competed in ski jumping and all the fun stuff, and still heavily involved with Team Canada on that front. And he works for a company called H2 Safety in Calgary, and is kind of a man, jack of all trades, master of none when it comes to that deal. So welcome to the show, Max Thompson.
Thanks, Wacey. Awesome.
Max also went to the Olympics 2006, and he's our friend Preston's boss. Preston Sire, been on the show before.
Definitely his boss. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
He's a popular guy on the show. His voice is iconic.
Quite good. And our third guest today, we've got a big show. She's a Canada's first ever world champion in the ski jumping and the first Canadian woman to win a World Cup ski jumping event. She's also the only female athlete ever to win junior and senior world championships in 1 year. Coming to us from, I think you said Finland.
He's in Loutitt right now.
Yeah, unbelievable.
Yeah,
Thanks
hi.
You left out the Olympic bronze there in her intro.
Oh yeah, geez.
Yeah, I also have
no big deal. No big deal. Yeah, no big deal.
Three Olympic medals on the show today. 3.
Yeah, you also left out the distance record of 225 meters.
Yes, I should let you do the intro, Max. I bugged that one.
Between the 5 of us, we got 2 bronze medals in the Olympics. Not too bad, eh?
That's pretty cool. It's pretty cool.
That's the hardware.
I'm so interested to hear about the evolution of how things have been, like when I started way back in the 90s to what your journey has been, Allie. So it's I'm excited to hear your story.
I'm excited to share it, and I'm excited to hear yours too.
Hey, Melissa, before we really get into it, are you a fan of wind sport or not? I want to hear your honest opinion.
Oh
boy.
Well, I was a part of when they were doing the plebiscite for the 2026 bid to come back to Calgary. I was part of all those meetings. I was there with Mayor Nenshi, and I got to hear all of his rah-rah stories and how he was going to support those games. Everything seems so positive, from what I know. I really separated myself since Sochi of the 2014 games, not only just because of the political stuff. I'm sure you've seen the movie Icarus on Netflix with the doping scandals. I still to this day don't know what result I have because, 4 years later, the Globe and Mail, the McLean's article came out and they adjusted our results and then they handed all the medals back. Like there's so much scandal that has happened since then that for me, I've just kind of removed myself. But as far as wind sport goes, I've got a good memory from when I was there as an athlete. It saddens me of where things are at to this day, because now we've got athletes like Allie and future generations that were like legacy babies of what we had built, and even be like before me in 1988, right? And so it's sad that it's crumbled to this point. We got into it pretty hot and heavy here, Max.
Yeah, no, I know that was an early question, but I started at COP. I still call it CODA in 1989, and yeah, it was. I feel like a lifelong battle just to keep the ski jumps alive for us, and so like. I think you'll soon find out that Allie had to move to Germany at 14 years old, 15 years old. She lives in Slovenia. Her coaches are Slovenian. I did the same thing in the early 2000s. I moved to Poland and Eastern Germany because the venues just they weren't maintained, and it was a constant fight to stay alive and train and compete for the sport you loved. So yeah, Allie, like she's the success story. I'm the failure story, which is awesome. I went off my own, made the Olympics, came second last place, and coached for a couple of years. But frick, Allie did it. So it's so cool to see.
Yeah, but you're one of the forefathers, right? You're the one of the ones who laid the bricks of the road that made it possible for the young athletes like Allie.
Might I also add, Max handpicked me from a group of children, so there's some credit there.
Why don't we get into that? That was gonna be my question, Alex. How did you like find the sport, like with how things have changed and maybe not as accessible as it in the past? But like, yeah, how did this all go down? How did Max find the Wonder Child?
Well, so it started off with me wanting to become an Olympian. I watched the 2010 Olympics. I was 6 years old, and I became obsessed with like ski jumping and aerials and those kind of sports. Really, I don't know, extreme skiing sports really caught my attention. And my parents for years were like, no, no, no. And then my brother and I went to the Wind Sport summer camp, and we're the only ones who were willing to go from the top. And then Max recruited us because no other kid was brave enough to go except for my brother and I. And so my parents were like, okay, well, we're going to let him do it. We've got to let her do it. And so we both joined, and my brother was like a brick. He is like 6'1" and a goalie in hockey. Like he's not built for ski jumping. But I fell in love with the sport from the very first jump.
Well, and Max, what did you see in Alex? To like, obviously the bravery is the first thing we noticed, but how did you know she could make it?
Gutsy, like she had it, no fear. Like I did that a ton. I brought in kids, and we have like a development hill at Windsport, or we had one before they were shut down. And any kid on the first day would go from the top. It's like, okay, you're born for this. And ski jumping is like, there's a lot of like any sport, there's a body type for it, right? And she just fit the mold for everything, like scrawny, which is important, which I'm not. But no, it's a big thing because you're flying, right? So weight drops. So, but it's more, you can see it in their eyes the day they start. They want to do it. They're not scared of it. It's amazing, and it's like it's no different than skeleton. You're going face first at what 130K, Melissa? How fast do you go?
Yeah, so every track in the world is different. My top speed was 143.8 kilometers down. So yeah, we're all crazy.
Yeah, a little nuts for sure.
Well, I remember my very first ski jump, and I was walking up with these giant skis. I was a tiny little kid, and there's these gates, and you send the kids from the lower gates to start, and Max is walking up behind me, and I'm like, what's that for? And Max is like, don't worry about it, keep walking. And so I just went right to the top, my very first jump. I didn't even know that there was another option, and so I just sent it from the first one.
Yeah. And that's the beauty of youth and the feeling you're invincible and being naive, right? Like the rodeo world, all those things. Like as you get older, you get a little bit smarter.
A little bit more
you
risk.
You can go on Google right now,
yeah,
and you could look up Alex Loutitt 225 and see this epic jump she just had. Was that for you? Was that yesterday, or is it still the same
yesterday.
day? It was yesterday. So she went 225 meters. Phenomenal video. I highly recommend you watch it. But I remember her first jump on what's called a 30-meter hill, which is like the second smallest jump. And I was a brutal coach. I laughed. I know everyone's going to crash. So I was like howling, laughing as she went down the ramp, fell on her back, cartwheel down the hill.
It's like ripping, and I still have this video. It's like ripping wind, and you can hear as soon as I leave the bar, Max starts chuckling. He's like, and then I come off the ramp and I smack the ground and I just start tumbling, and you can hear him losing it.
That's a good, nice supportive coach. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So yes, jumping when kids are young is get them going down the big hills early. and then make them realize the crashes aren't that bad
Yeah.
because you got up and jumped again, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I crashed another 4 times, but yeah, I got up and did it again.
For sure.
Holy smokes!
Well,
It's
and you
almost like getting
said
over
yes.
by a bull. Similar idea.
Yeah, the first time you get bucked off, that was awesome.
Right.
Well,
Um,
even though,
oh,
like, even now, my philosophy with crashing is still the same as when I was a child. It's like you have to do it again so you don't become afraid. It's like a redemption shot
get
almost.
back on
If
the
you can
horse.
get up, if you can walk, you can go for at least one more.
Yeah.
Melissa, did you have any tumbles on the track?
Yes. Although my story was I was always kind of a little bit safe, and I was good at what I did, but I was always safe. So in 14 years, I'd only had 2 crashes. And then they built the Whistler track for the 2010 Olympics, and it was deemed the fastest track in the world, the most dangerous track. And us as Canadians were essentially guinea pigs. And, we were crashing quite a bit. And now I can't count on all my fingers and toes of how many crashes I've had. So that was an interesting experience for me at that point, because I'd already won an Olympic medal. I was always very experienced. But now I'm going through what you would typically go through as a new athlete, of trying to relearn, like exactly that, like how do you face your fears, and how do you get your confidence back through all that. And then I had the expectations of doing well at those home Olympics and those games, so that was a pretty wild mental, emotional ride leading into those 2010 Olympics for sure.
what do you do when
That
you
was
crash on a skeleton though? Like you kind of learn to fall doing, like when you get bucked off a horse or whatever. Or you kind of learn ways to kind of get yourself out of trouble, but it seems like skeleton would just be complete like shit show.
Yeah, you're helpless. You lose contact with the ice, and you have all of that speed and the G forces and that weight, and you literally just have to go limp. You try to hang on to your sled the best that you can, and you get burnt. We don't have any protection. You're just wearing your skin suit, and so there's not anything that protects you. Our little helmets are not necessarily protecting our heads. They're more for aerodynamics. And really, when it comes to the concussion issues, it's your brain inside of your skull. So like a helmet isn't going to help a whole lot of that. Touching on crashes, I don't know if you guys remember in the 2010 Olympics, for the opening ceremonies, or the day of the opening ceremonies, that was the day in the luge practice that the Georgian luger died on corner 16. So that was crazy for the entire world and our country, and then obviously our sliding sports, to be able to overcome that and that energy. And for me personally, that was the corner where I had the majority of my crashes. I've spent time in the hospital after being flung off that corner there. So that was a major mental hurdle. All our sports psychs were gathering around all of our teammates, myself and my teammates, just to try and keep us together and keep us focused on what our job was for those games, not to focus on something so tragic.
You know what? I find that really interesting because in ski jumping, it's actually like, you can ask Max. I know this sounds absolutely insane, but it's quite safe because, you're always falling with the speed, and we're not really going that fast. We're high, but, you're falling with the slope of the hill. You're not falling against it. Like, you guys are falling against your speed. We're falling with our speed. And so, most of our injuries tend to be like knee, shoulder, collarbone, things like that, where it's just high impact. And so it tends to be going way too short or way too far that those happen. But, it tends to be injuries that people can come back from.
I've watched you guys crash, though. I've watched you guys crash.
Melissa, you're like me. You're like in '90s, 2000s. The sport was a little bit different then. It's come a long way because
It's also very controlled now.
Oh, sorry, Ali, go ahead.
Well, the equipment's changed, so we're going lower speeds in the same distances. And so they've done that on purpose, because when they dropped the speed by increasing the sizes of our suits, everything became safer, because even though you are going, really far, you're going the same distance with less speed. So it's a lot easier on your body and your joints. And so, when they started realizing that that was a possibility for safety, and, it makes it more exciting for viewers and safer for the athletes, and, it's still fun for us. It's kind of like a win-win situation.
Well, speaking of this, the 225 from just the other day, I found this clip on YouTube. Can you guys all see this right now?
Oh, yeah. I can see it. I've watched this 100 times. I'll watch it all day.
Okay, so
I can't look at myself.
I
Nice
can't
goggles,
believe
though.
I can't believe your goggles. Like looking at the reflection of your goggles to see this thing. Like this thing looks
I love
terrifying.
my goggles. That is not a very big ski flying in run though, to be honest with you. It
Really?
looks like just a regular in run. And then you come over Noah and you're like, oh, this is not a regular hill.
Holy. So tell
My
tell us
feet's
about
pretty
this.
choppy. I don't know about you guys.
Oh, it probably is on Zoom, I guess.
That
Oh,
green
wow.
line was Allie's to beat line. She went like 100 meters past it.
Unbelievable.
Well, walk us
Yeah,
walk
well,
us through
it was like
it,
my
Alex.
to
Tell us what's
oh
going
yeah,
through
and
your.
then well, like when I'm jumping, I'm not actually thinking, and I know that that's really hard to like actually do, and I've gotten quite good at that, but I'm just like feeling everything when I'm there. I'm feeling the weight of my body coming through that transition, and I'm letting the G forces preload my jump. And so when I come to the end of the takeoff, I have terrible depth perception, like the worst depth perception ever. I have terrible hand-eye coordination, but I feel everything, and I feel the weight under my skis and I feel the lift under my skis. And so I have so much control of my body because I'm not thinking, I'm feeling.
I'm glad you touched on that. Sorry, Ted, I'm going to interrupt
Go
you
ahead.
because
Go ahead.
that is why she is the best in the world, is because she has trusted her training. And in the moment, if she is thinking when she is coming down that ramp, she's late. Like, and that is key. Like any athlete I've ever talked to of any sport, they're like, okay, like what is one thing? What is one thing? And I'm like, that's just it. You got to trust your training. You're not training while you're making a run, like whether that's the ski jumping, me and the skeleton, me on a barrel horse. Like when you come up that alley on a barrel horse, you're not thinking anymore. Like you got to trust your training. It's the same thing when you're going down that ramp. That's why you are the best in the world. You've figured that out.
And so part of my routine is that I do not let myself think about what I want to do until I'm going into the control box. So it's kind of like 3 girls before me. When the 3rd girl goes, you get to go into check your suit to make sure it's legal and it meets like the FIS parameters. And so once I'm through that control box, I zone in, and my coach calls it the bubble. So I put myself in this little bubble. I'm not worried about what gate I'm going, how much wind there is, what my teammate's doing, what the person in front of me is doing, what the starter is saying, like none of that. I'm just thinking, okay, this is what I want to do. And sometimes I do get caught up in that I want to win, I want to win, I want to win. But when I start doing that, I go, okay, but how are you going to win? And so then I'm able to like bring my focus back into that, these are the steps you're going to do. Like, and when I think about what I want to do, I think about the feelings that cause outcomes, not the outcomes.
Yes.
It's weird. I found this in sport is like you get to a point where like I started ski jumping because I love flying. And then you're kind of on the World Cup or whatever, and you're doing it as like a process. Do you ever get that? Like you were beaming Allie after that 225-meter jump, but I know sometimes I forgot that I was actually flying. I was just like so focused on the technical that you like almost lost the pleasure.
I don't know.
I'm just curious what your guys' thought on that is.
Once I used to feel that way, but once I started thinking and just like feeling everything, because it's not just like physical feeling, it's like inside, it's like the internal feeling too. I started like being able to celebrate when I jumped good, or obviously I have bad jumps still too. But I'm able to have honest emotions without overreacting. And so in both ways, because there are some athletes who tend to very much overreact when they have a good jump, and it's like very much a show and not authentic and poor sportsmanlike. So it's like, when I am feeling and I'm feeling the things that, emotionally and physically, then I have genuine reactions to things. And I think it's one of the reasons why a lot of the fans tend to like really like me, and a lot of them send me very nice messages, and how they like how genuine I am, and the way that I react after my jumps, both good and bad. And I think it's because it's very obvious that it's genuine.
That's your authentic character. Yeah, it's great.
Ted, do you mind pulling up the video of Mackenzie Boyd Close bronze medal 2022? I want to show that video because it's the coolest reaction to an Olympic medal win I've ever seen in my life.
I remember.
That was funny.
He didn't react at all. Like he didn't even fist bump.
Yeah.
Like he just won an Olympic medal, and he just like head down.
Like, yeah, it's Mackenzie. No, but what happened was like also we're like me, Sukup, Abby, we're jumping up and down, screaming, we're going, what the fuck is happening? Holy shit. And Mackenzie's like, guys, guys, can I take my skis off? They're like,
Is that
"Yeah,
what he's
sure."
saying?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
And then he like came in for the group hug, but you know, there was a moment in Beijing, and I didn't notice it because obviously I wasn't able to see this, but if you look at the replay of the medal ceremony, you can see where we're all holding hands after we've gotten our medals, and Mackenzie standing at the end of the line because he was like the finisher for our team. And it was the other three of us. This was our first Olympics. We're all rookies, and then this was Mackenzie's fourth Olympics, right? And so he like looks down at the line and he just has like a proud big brother moment, like holding all of our hands, and it was just so good.
I don't think you understand. Like, and Melissa, you grew up kind of with me 90s and 2000s at Winsport. Like, we were a joke ski jumping. Like what are those guys doing up there? And, like,
Until
the
a
fact
year
that
ago, ski jumping was still a joke. I hope you know that.
oh no, it was. It absolutely was. And it's like I lived it. I did the sport. I competed. I coached, and I'm currently on the board. And it's like no one took it seriously. It was funny, and then like boom, Olympic medal. Like that was like for like guys like Ted Bothia and Gregor Linzig and Jason Slicky and myself. Like watching that was like surreal. Like we thought it would never happen.
It was
But
redemption.
for me as an athlete, like in another sport, you guys trained just as hard as what we did. You guys invested the time just as hard as what we did. And, within our bubble, essentially, of all of the amateur sport in Canada, everybody had the respect for you for all of your work ethic and investment that you had. So you say a joke. But we never looked at you guys like that.
I never. So you're a peer of mine. I didn't mean that like directly to you because like we always go. I just meant like the general, coming from
public,
right? It was just
Yes.
That's what I meant. I didn't. That wasn't directly to you.
Okay. Okay. I just wanted to let you know.
Oh yeah.
For us though, I think the reason why our team is now suddenly so strong is not just that like we finally have support, and it started with coaches who like were living at home and weren't having to travel away from season, so that they had more resources and access to help us. That was one of the pieces, but the next piece was that we honestly love this sport so much we were willing to pay for it ourselves. Like some of the other girls were paying for university and their own sport and all these things just to be ski jumping. And I moved away from home at 14, and they also started living in Europe around the same time. And, I'm dating an Austrian ski jumper, and he's like, I cannot believe how much you girls love this sport. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? Of course we love it. Like, don't you? And he's like, well, yeah, but he is from the most successful team, and his teammate is one of the most successful, not just ski jumpers, but Austrian athletes at all times. And he's current like men's world record holder. And he was like, I don't even think he loves the sport the way you girls do. And I think that passion we have and how much like we love the sport genuinely is why we're starting to succeed now, is because once we finally had that resources, we have the passion,
I can't believe that you are from Calgary and we literally have COP down the road from your house, and you have to go to Europe to do this. Like that just seems unbelievable to me. And you brought up right off the bat, Max, but it seems like total bullshit. Like, what the hell?
It definitely is. But
in 1988, Winsport was given $100 million to carry on the legacy of the amateur sports. And I mean, that was a long time ago. They did a good job. Like, we're talking 88 was 35 years ago. I think the sliding stuff, Melissa, am I correct? They're still active, right?
No, they blew the track up in Calgary.
Yeah, what are you talking about?
Yeah, the track from Corner 4 up. I don't know if some of it is still there. And that, like, nobody even knew about it. That was as soon as they couldn't upgrade the refrigeration plant. Go on, you're going to be able to tell more of what happened with that money.
No, but this is cool. I'm so glad you're here, Melissa, because it's like, it's one thing about Canadian athletes. It's unique. Like, we're not from Central Europe. Like, I competed against guys who their full-time job was to train and compete. And it's like, Ali, to your point, I work in oil and gas. I do a sales job for a company called H2 Safety, Fire ERPs. That's my shameless plug. Natalie Eilers, she serves me at Earl's as well.
Yeah.
It's like she's working downtown and competing internationally.
Yeah.
You have to do that.
my teammate, she has to work as a bartender to make it through her season. And, I have another teammate who works in like data analysis or something like that, so she can do it overseas. And, Abby and I now, after the Olympic medal, have received individual funding, but that's 2 athletes out of 4 that are being funded and being supported. And look at where the divide in the team is. It's the 2 athletes who are being supported and funding that are currently the highest ranked. It's not a coincidence. It's
No, 100%.
It's disappointing to see, but I think after the season that Abby and I have had, it's not just going to be more money brought in for us, but we're hoping that we'll be able to have more funding allocated towards the whole team. Because honestly, what makes me really sad is that people don't see how far the rest of our team has come. They just see me on the podium, they see me winning events, they see me setting records, but they don't even acknowledge that my teammates who have come much further than I have. It's much harder to go from dead last to into the top 30 than it is to go from 20th to first. It's a much closer gap between 20th and first than 60th and 30th, right? Like, it is so much harder, that first step. And I think they've done such a good job, and they've gotten no recognition for it. And it's kind of sad to see, because it's hard when you put in so much work and you've improved so much, but no one cares because there's someone else doing something more.
Yeah.
That bubble life, I know all about it because that's where I lived. It was, between 50th and 30th in the World Cups.
Yeah.
Right.
And so, they are steadily improving, but it's been Abby and I who've gotten the support. It's always been like, not from necessarily coaches, but more from funding perspectives. Like, I got grants and Abby got grants, and we were getting these things that the other 2 girls weren't. And it didn't create a split in our team, but it allowed Abby and I to progress quicker. And it's a little bit unfair. Like, obviously we didn't choose to get chosen, but you can see that there's a divide in the team.
Melissa, what was your experience in this same capacity?
Yeah, it's, very similar. So I started when I was 15, and it was right when women actually had their own starting to get their own World Cup. We used to actually race with the men. I didn't have that experience, but like the year before me. So Salt Lake was the first Olympics where women's skeleton was an Olympic sport. And with me being so young at the age of 16, I had to go door knocking. I essentially had to sell myself to sponsors. I had to pay for my own flight, my portion into the rental car in Europe, my race fees, all of that. Like, I learned how to grow up pretty quick. And also, like, nobody knew what skeleton was back then. So like, I don't know how I did it to like get these people on my side, but it eventually happened. And it sort of the same as you, Allie, where I set myself apart with that funding. One of my best stories is I didn't make the 2002 Olympics. I had a world championship medal in the year 2000. It was a lot of hype going into the Salt Lake City Olympics of me being a part of that. 3 weeks from the opening ceremonies, we had a race off. I had a teammate and one of my best friends at the time, a rookie, came onto the team. She had an outstanding season and she beat me. And so I went from like being top of the world to crashing like myself personally, right? Devastation. And a couple of years later, the sports center, they always had fundraisers, one being Golf with an Olympian. I don't know if they still do that, but it was a fundraiser for all the amateur athletes for different services. And they asked me to come and be a part of it. So, a company will purchase a team and you golf with 4 other members for the day. And I'm thinking, I don't think I should be there because, I didn't go to the Olympics. This is Golf with an Olympian. And they're like, no, you're training for 2006 in Italy. We believe in you. You got to come. I'm like, okay. So I show up and I don't golf at this time. You gotta remember, I'm like, I don't know, 22 or 23 years. That's it. And the first question I get, I'm with all these oil guys from downtown Calgary. They're like, oh, which Olympics did you go to? And I'm like, I didn't. And they're like, oh, great. We spent $5,000 and we got a dud. Like, oh, no. And also I don't golf. We get to the first hole. So I'm trying really hard for make small talk. And the first hole we get to is a hole in one. And if you win, like get a hole in one, you win the car. So I'm asking, well, how many holes in ones have y'all gotten? So they're like, great. We didn't get an Olympian. We have a dud and she's stupid. Like she doesn't know anything about golf. We spend all day with her. We get to the next hole in one opportunity and you win $10,000. And I hit the ball. I hit the back of the cup and it bounced out. And we're like, oh my God. And then the guy who purchased the team hit the ball, sunk it. And he won the $10,000. So the guy I had been golfing with all day was like, you got to give that money to Melissa. We got to get her to the Olympics in 2006. And he was like, no, I'm out of here. Hungry athletes everywhere. He went and bought his wife a necklace, I'm sure. And I kind of scrounged up the courage to ask this guy, who was Paul Bay, was his name. And he owned a company called True Energy Trust at the time. So I asked him for his card. I thought, well, maybe we can strike up some kind of a sponsorship conversation. He didn't have a card. I give him my card, and I'm thinking his wife's gonna wash his shorts and never hear from him again. And to my
Melissa, were those free cards that we get at the university back in the day?
Yes.
Yeah.
And
with
so
our Hotmails on them.
Yeah, exactly. And this is back in like 2004. So his secretary contacted me on the Monday, drafted up a contract. He bought me a new sled. He gave me sponsorship money for the next couple of years. I went from 8th in the world to 1st in the world and winning an Olympic medal. He put my entire family up in Italy to come and watch. He came and watched. He said it was the cheapest investment that he did for his company morale, because every weekend when they were watching me in Europe and I was on the podium or, whatever it was, it brought his entire team together, and they had something to talk about, and they felt like they were a part of that journey. And it really was like minuscule in the finance department for him, and what it did for their morale was out of this world and so unique. So it's I understand.
You skeleton people have always had flair, because your medal win is iconic with the cowboy hat. I was there live. I was rooting you on, and then John Montgomery with the beer chug. You guys win medals.
We always joked that we lived in the glory golden years. Like, we were so fortunate, for that to happen, and then the lead up into Vancouver 2010, where we did live rock star type lives. And thank God John kind of saved our butts there after my mishap, and Skeleton kind of.
Well, because you were the year that Jeff Payne was silver and Duff Gibson won, right?
Yeah, in Italy in 2006. So we won 3 Olympic medals in Italy. And then in Vancouver, I was sitting in the silver medal position and made the mistake, dropped to 5th, but John was right after me and he ended up winning the gold. So, yeah.
No, that was Vancouver. That was a blur. I had moved out of competing. I was actually coaching in Vancouver, Jason Slicky. That was a fun Olympics.
Fun as an
You never have any fun, Max.
Yeah.
No, never. Yeah.
I gotta ask Alex, how crappy was going to the Olympics during COVID, and how much that would be? Not much fun. I'm assuming a silly Olympics that would be awesome, but it would.
First of all, the Olympics is always fun. So
okay.
To be honest, how would I know anything different? This is my first Olympics. I have no other experience. I don't know what I'm missing out on, so I've got to go to another one. I got to make up for it. But there was some weird. It had some weird quirks for sure. Like I said, I'm dating an Austrian, and so he was also there, and we got in trouble multiple times for walking outside together. And I was wearing all Canada gear, and he was wearing all Austria gear, and they're like, "You guys can't be within 2 meters of each other," and we're like, "We're just walking outside." It was crazy.
An Austrian.
I know, I'm a traitor. Yeah,
that's what happens when you got to move to Europe to train for your own sport, I guess.
Yeah, and I actually didn't meet him in Europe even. We met at a competition in Russia. But yeah.
What's it like being in Russia right now?
Pardon?
What's it like being in Russia right now?
I don't know. I'm not in Russia right now. Him and I met.
When were you there last?
She's in Finland. It's 200 kilometers away.
When was I last there? It was before the Olympics. It was
okay.
I'm gonna share a story.
December 2021.
Okay.
And I've been to Russia 3 times, all within 8 months of each other or something like that. So my first World Cup was in Russia, and that's where I met my boyfriend. And then I scored my first World Cup points the next Russia trip, and then I went one more time after that in the lead up to Beijing.
Max, you had a story you got to put in there.
This is a good story.
Oh, this is Russia. Remember this one?
Yeah.
Oh, this is Russia. So I went to Russia in 2013 coaching,
14.
and we all got given an attaché, a host to take care of us. And I got this gorgeous 20-year-old Russian girl, Masha Kirsanova. Awesome person, so nice. She treated me well. showed me everything. And then in 2014 for the Olympics, I kind of quit my coaching job, and I was transitioning to like the new job I have now in energy, doing emergency management. And I show up and I Instagram Masha, and I'm like, what are you doing? And she's like, oh, I'm the special assistant for an IOC board member. I'm like, what? Like, there's like 12 IOC board members that are like billionaire freaking like guys. And I'm like, what's your gig? She's like, I'm 24 hours on call with him and then 24 hours like off. And she had, and I think Allie and Melissa can speak to this, accreditation at the Olympics is everything. She had an infinity pass. It was just something you put over your lanyard and it had the infinity symbol. You get into anything, any venue at any time. Canada, USA were playing in the semifinals at the 2014 Olympics. And Masha sends me a text. She's like, I'm off today. Max, you should go to the game. I'm going to give you my pass. I'm like, oh my God, you got to be kidding me. So she gives me her infinity accreditation. I've been lucky in my life. I saw the Golden Goal live in 2010, and I watched Canada get knocked out of the Sochi Olympics in the quarterfinals with Walter Gretzky. I watched it with Walter. It was crazy. So I'm like, hey, I'm on a roll of Olympic games here, so let's go. I walk in, and I have no clue what I'm in for. I'm just like, show my pass, and like, take a left, take a right, like, go this way. And then Becky Scott is at the door. And she was an athlete representative for the IOC board. And Becky and I, like, we know each other, but I wouldn't say we're friends. And kind of that Nordic combined ski jumping, cross country skier kind of thing. She's like, Max, what are you doing here? I'm like, I'm going to the game. She's like, you have no business being here. She's like, Putin's behind you. I turn my head, Putin's behind me. I'm like, oh shit. I'm sneaking into a game in Putin's box. And I'm like, Becky, don't ruin this for me. I just like head down, went in. And there was like, we were at the center ice box. There was Grey Goose coming out of a glass fountain. There was caviar, like this wild spread. And then I'm like, I'm with Vladimir Putin. I did not enjoy that game. I snuck into Vladimir Putin's box in 2014, and I regret going. I don't even know what the score was of that game. I just got the hell out of there the second I could.
Oh man! So you watched the whole game, but you just were fretting the whole time that you're going to get murdered by?
Oh, terrified
people.
Yeah.
Oh my!
Yeah.
One
You
wrong
get
move.
to say you drank vodka.
Yeah, dude. And Putin's sweet. That's badass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Could you imagine if you just
gnarly.
got loaded with them and just had this crazy story about partying with Putin? And he's just a sweet
No,
dude,
I avoided him.
Like,
Yeah.
Oh, you avoided him?
That guy has an aura. He actually walked into the Canadian Olympic House in 2014. Melissa's nodding like she was there. I was hanging out with Babcock, just having beers at the bar, and Putin walked in, and it was like you could feel his presence. It's like the temperature changed in the room. It was nuts.
Yeah.
Like the
I
Darth
wasn't
Vader
there, but
Imperial March starts playing.
Yeah. Crazy.
What's your story, Melissa? You said you had something there.
Yeah.
too?
My story? Oh, well, I if we're talking Russia's story, I don't know if my stories are really that exciting other than that I feel like for those games, what they did is they just put a bunch of chain link fence up and banners and just, didn't show who they really were, because obviously we've been there for World Cups and for training, and we know what it's truly like there. It's scary to say the least. In the Olympic Village, my one story there was myself and one of my teammates, we shared a room, and our house cleaner was like overly friendly. She would come in and she would talk to us all the time. She'd make our beds, but every time we would come back, something would be out of place. Like, my training gear, whatever, things would be moved around. And I had gone down to the women's hockey gold medal game. I watched that live. And by the time you get on the bus back up to the mountain, it's a couple hours later, like it's late, like maybe 1 a.m. by the time I go to bed. And I remember I had a gold watch I put up on the shelf in the bathroom, got ready for bed, go to sleep. And at 10 o'clock in the morning or 9 o'clock in the morning, she knocks on the door to come in. And I was like, no, it's okay. I'm still sleeping. Because this is a post race, right? Like we're now just fans essentially going and watching different events. And I get up and my watch is gone. And I'm like, what the heck? I just took that off. What's going on? And then I started looking, and I realized, because you get a bunch of sponsored gear, like not just your kit of your gear, like the jackets and that, the nice Lululemon there. Like you get a Samsung phone, you get a bunch of just like stuff, right?
Goodies.
Yeah. And I never touched any of it. I just kind of stored it away and got looking, and it was all gone. And so got talking with some of the other athletes and coaches that were on our floor, and they got looking, and yeah, they had like colognes, prescription meds, Olympic garb, things that you wouldn't notice that would be gone. Cause like they noticed, okay, so we know every time she comes in and out, she knows that my training bag, I move that around, but she noticed that one Samsung bag never moved. So I probably wouldn't notice if that was gone. So I went to like our manager on that floor and said, okay, I know it happened at this time because that door knocked at this time and that watch was gone. Here's a picture of the watch. And they found her and they got it all back. And then they said she probably, who knows what happened to her. And they were serious about it. They were serious about it. Like, it's not just like a slap on the wrist for her. It's probably we don't know where it's at.
She might not be alive right now.
Exactly. I just
Yeah.
thought I would like, make it sound like that, but yeah.
I mean, we had some strange experiences, but nothing like that. Like, one of our coaches tested positive at the games. And so he was locked away. He got put in a single room and they just slide food under his door twice a day. And during the middle of that, I think it was his room, the toilet like exploded. It was just like water was leaking everywhere and they wouldn't come in to fix it. And it was just like absolute chaos. And like, they had these weird booths where you had to walk through like, it was like almost like a customs deck, but it was for COVID tests. And, it was just bizarre things like that. And they had these little robots that would go around the village and they were spraying sanitizer everywhere. It was just like, everything was covered in like this like powdery sanitizer dust. It was awful.
Wow.
I was always jealous of you skeleton people, Melissa, because in Nordic Combined, we always had a competition on the first and last day, so we couldn't really enjoy what was going on. Like
ski jumpers too.
I mean, I never made opening ceremonies because we always had a competition day one.
Yeah. Well, we were always like between 6 and 8. So we weren't like the losers where they were days 1 and 2, and then they like used their jacket every night. They were out partying all the time. So we got a good balance of everything, of where it was like we could do the opening ceremonies and not be too exhausted, and then have some fun afterwards. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
what were some of the sports you like to watch, Melissa? And I guess Alex too. Aside from like your own stuff, like did you watch a lot of hockey, curling? What was it?
I wasn't allowed to do anything. We were allowed to
I guess Beijing you probably would have been locked down.
We sat in the athlete center because we were allowed to interact with our own team members. So you could only interact with other Canadians. And so they had this big like viewing room set up, and it had like an Xbox and a PS5 and a coffee maker and whatever. And so we'd all hang out in this room and just watch whatever was on. And it was like literally all anyone did was just sit in this giant room and watched whatever sport was on.
That's sad.
Sounds awesome.
Like we also, Max and I, and we also had like those common rooms, but we were very fortunate that we got to go live and watch different events. You just put your name in and they would give you a ticket for it. And I think, which one was actually one of my favorites was in Sochi in 2014. I went and watched biathlon, and
that's a good sport.
I loved it. I loved the like being there live, because I've seen it on TV, but I'd never seen it live, and it was awesome. Like they had great like atmosphere, and it was exciting, and I had no idea, but I really enjoyed that. And yes, I've been to like
you're skiing around with a gun. It's fantastic.
Well, I like watching biathlon, and I like when the crowd cheers and it's like everyone stops so they can shoot again, and it's like everyone cheers when they hit it and then it stops again, and then they cheer when they hit the mark, and it's a lot of fun actually.
Yeah. And the ski cross, snowboard cross, those are pretty good parties too when you go watch those. Yeah.
You know what? The coolest thing I ever experienced at the Olympics, and this like kind of defines the spirit of the Canadian team. Alexander Bilodeau won a gold medal in moguls, I think on the first day of the 2010 Olympics. And I was staying in Whistler, but I had to go do some paperwork in Vancouver, and it was like a condo complex where the athlete village was. And then the elevator comes down, and Babcock. Babcock, yeah. He comes out of the elevator, and he's with Chris Pronger and Jerome McGinley and Sidney Crosby. And there's a gal, she works for the Oilers now, actually, because she met Peter Chiarelli at the Olympics, and he hired her to work for the Oilers. But she goes up to Jerome McGinley and is like, "Hey, Bilodeau just won a gold medal. He's 5 minutes away. Would you guys mind like waiting here and giving him like a round of applause when he shows up. And Iggy's like, yeah, for sure. And Crosby's on board and they all hang out. And then something happened. It was like super postponed. It was like 40 minutes. And then Babcock is actually on. He's like, hey guys, we're going to wait. It's a practice. We're playing Latvia tomorrow. It doesn't matter. And they waited for like, it ended up being like almost an hour. Alexander Bilodeau shows up and the entire men's Olympic hockey team, which is just like Crosby, Iggy, Pronger, like an insane lineup, just gave him a round of applause. And he just started crying on the spot and they all give him a hug and a high five. I'm like, holy shit. Like that was one of the coolest things I've ever seen. And I was just like, I was a nobody just kind of in the background. I'm like, this is sweet. So,
well, I had an experience like that, but it wasn't a hockey team because we weren't in the same village as them. But, it was me and Sukup. We walk in after getting our medals and we're like all happy. And, Mikhail Kingsbury like comes up to us. He's like, you know what you guys need to do? And Sukup and you're like, you know who we are? Like, oh my God. He's like, you guys need to get some socks. And we're like, get some socks? He's like, yeah, you need socks for your medal. He's like, get socks for the medal. And we're like, okay. And it's just like total, like, we're like, holy crap. And he's like, yeah. And they had like made a big poster for us because they were leaving as we were coming back. And it was like, they did a big celebration for us. And it was really cool.
So do you keep,
I still don't get where the socks fit in.
I do. I have a Superman sock that I keep my medal in.
I keep mine in a Royal Crown whiskey bag.
That's even better.
Whiskey.
Oh man.
How did you end up putting your medal in that?
What's that?
It's like that purple bag that comes with Crown Royal.
It was soft in velvet, and I don't even know. I don't know how I got it because I don't drink whiskey, and I was like, "Oh, it's perfect. It's perfect."
That's good.
So where are the medals? Like, Melissa, yours is probably back home when you're away, and same thing with you, Alex. Like they would stay at home on a top of the fireplace.
Mine's in my apartment in Slovenia.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, mine's at home. I don't have it mounted or anything. Like I spent, pretty much from the day that I won it out speaking. So it's hilarious. Like when you get my medal compared to some other medals like that are pristine, mine, like I went into like a grade 2 class about I guess it'd be a month afterwards. And it was on St. Patty's Day and they had green icing cupcakes and they're all like eating their cupcakes and touching my medal. I'm like, no. Like, and it's just, I've been in lots of parades on horses. Like it's beat up, like hitting saddle horns and it's not in good shape at all. But I think that just shows it's been in that many hands and maybe the impact it has on somebody down the line in the future. I think that's cooler.
Yeah, that's the same philosophy
awesome.
I have with mine, where it's like I don't want to hide it away. I don't want to keep it in a safe. It's like, especially mine was a team medal, right? It's like something that was a collective effort. It wasn't just, one person, one moment, it was a whole bunch of people and a whole team behind that team of people, right? And so it's like also, and I think about like the impact, like having moments like that, because I like went to things like the Fast and Female events and those things, right? Where how much of an impact those had for me as a young athlete. I want to do the same for others. And, I do a lot of speaking with Indigenous schools and young girls. Those are kind of the two things I'm really passionate about. And I always let them hold the medal and, that sort of thing, because even if their goals aren't sport related, it's like a very understandable goal and very understandable level of success. And, it's inspirational no matter what your passion is.
Yeah, absolutely. You can draw the parallels no matter what field of work you're in. Yeah,
exactly.
How did things change for you guys after winning your medals? Like with like the pressure, Alex, you were talking to it before we started recording here. Like people recognize who you are now. Like how much has that impacted the way you're going to approach your next steps? And Melissa, how much did it change for you?
Nothing really changed that much for me with my Olympic medal, just because in ski jumping, it's very European dominated versus like other sports. I don't know about yours, but I think you're also in the same situation where it's more European media, more European attention. And in Europe, the Olympics are less valued than they are in North America. So, my world championship win had gotten much, much, much more recognition for me than the Olympic medal. And part of that might be, as an individual, and I was already starting to show some really good results going into that event. But, I I think that since it's weighted less, it's more about consistency for the audience that's watching ski jumping. I started getting recognized. And I'm pretty sure if I went home and I said my name to someone, they would be like, okay, cool. What do you do?
Oh, not the sport.
It's funny you mentioned that, Ali, with the World Championships, because I remember in Sochi, every Russian I ran into was bragging about how Russia won the hockey World Championships, and I'm like, that wasn't even on TV in Canada. Like, we don't care.
Yeah,
but that,
like
that World
I could
Championships.
yeah, I could say to a Canadian like, "Oh yeah, I'm world champion in ski jumping," and they'd be like, "Cool, but how did you do at the Olympics?" And I'd be like, "Well,
Yeah.
I was disqualified, so you know."
Yeah. My story I would say is different just because of the timing. Like I won mine in 2006, and that's kind of like where people weren't really sure what the sport was. But yes, in Canada, that was back in the time where everybody gathered around to watch the Olympic Games for one. Like it was something that was exciting because, you know, we would go to the Olympic Games and maybe come home with only a couple medals, and our team did so well in Italy in 2006 as a whole. And then we were hosting 2010. So we were in the goal, like the hosting broadcast rights had changed from CBC to CTV, and their goal was to bring these names of these athletes and be household names so that people understood that. And they did a very good job with the media and amateur sport and getting to know who we were as people and as athletes, and getting Canadians to follow us from 2006 to 2010. So I would say my life changed hugely after winning that medal, just with opportunities, you know, financially and really financially. Yeah.
How important is it for the Olympics to come back to Canada at some point? We're one of the few nations in the world that could do it. The Calgary bid, Melissa, you talked about that being something you worked on, but how important is it for that to come back to Canada? Like that, it's got to come back here at some point, but like the Calgary, it's kind of disappointing that the Calgary mayor at the time wasn't behind it. So, you know, what's got to happen though?
It's really important, you know, not just for ski jumping, but, you know, because when you have facilities like that and huge events where kids like me, that's how I got into sport. And that's how my Olympic dream started, was having a home Olympics. You generate like a whole new wave of kids at the grassroots level. So it's like a whole new generation of kids wanting to do all sport across all sports. You know, it's not just one sport.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like Calgary was like a hub for North America of not just Canadian athletes to come and train there, like American athletes, because for us, we had the Ice House. That's an indoor push facility. So we had Americans living there year round training, and the small nations, Australia, Japan, like they would come and live in Calgary, and same with the speed skating world, right? Like where all the small nations, they would come and they would train at an Olympic Oval. I think Calgary's now lost out on that because the amount of money that it would take to get those facilities up and running, I don't know, but Vancouver definitely has a shot. And the more that they're talking about trying to reuse these facilities in these Olympic host cities, I think that would be great. And it would probably take a lot of, I don't know, some of the scandals, the money scandals out of it, because it seems like it's been such a money game since Sochi, really, I feel like, of like which city gets the Olympic bid and how they're doing things. So it would be amazing if Vancouver would get that opportunity again, and for all of our up and coming athletes.
And I also think that Vancouver would be a really good opportunity because the board leading the bid is Indigenous led. So the Indigenous people of the area have a say in this. And that was kind of one of the issues they had with the 2010 games, is that they felt like they didn't have enough of a voice. And so, you know, by having them involved in the decision making, you know, not only is it a good opportunity for the Indigenous people in the area, but it's a good opportunity to show, you know, Indigenous culture and values and traditions to the entire world. Because oftentimes when you hear a North American Indigenous person, they all get grouped into one, you know, very confining, very stereotypical, you know, idea. And so oftentimes I have explained this, and I've had so many conversations about this. My dad's side of the family is Indigenous, from like way far north. So it's the most northern group of Native Americans. And so it's like where the Inuit meet Native Americans, right? It's called the Gwich'in, and so the Caribou people. And it's very hard for Europeans to comprehend that there's so many different groups of Indigenous people, and it's not just like one type of person. And, it's like a whole group of people and a whole different, many cultures spanning all across North America. And so I think it's a good opportunity for the world to see that it's not just one group of people.
Yeah.
Allie, I actually, sorry, at the start we had a scrambly start, but I actually meant to do a Treaty 7 territory land acknowledgement before we started this call. Most of us being in southern Alberta. So I just want to say, in the spirit of reconciliation, we acknowledge that we live, work, and play on the traditional territories of the Blackfoot Confederacy, the Tsuut'ina, and the Lax Lakota Nations, the Métis Nation Region 3, and all people who make their homes in the Treaty 7 region of southern Alberta. So meant to do that at the start, but thanks for the reminder.
You're welcome.
Well, I think from a fan standpoint, it would kind of help rejuvenate it on having Olympics in Canada. I know for like myself personally, like I haven't been as invested in the Olympics since they were in Vancouver. Like, like having that what CTV did, like bringing the people as household names. I think it could really like kind of inspire a new generation of fan as well, right?
I agree. And also in a way, it's different cheering for an athlete from your own country because you feel connected with them and you feel a sense of pride for them, even if it's like some superstar athlete or someone who's a really great person and a really great athlete. It's not the same as cheering for someone from your own nation or your own hometown.
Allie, who was it for you? Who was your, you watched 2010, who was your
Mackenzie?
No,
Max Thompson.
Really? It was Mackenzie?
No, yeah, and so I don't know, he's the only one I remember, but also at that point I'd become obsessed with ski jumping, and I don't know, I really liked Mackenzie and I liked how he jumped, and now him and I won an Olympic medal together, and we have the 2 furthest jumps out of any Canadians ever, and it's really cool. It's become like I feel like his little sister sometimes, and so Mac and we had a really good talk in Lillehammer right before the first ever women's ski flying event, and I wasn't scared to jump, but there was so much pressure on me to perform because of the results I've been having, especially on the large hills, which is the closest thing to ski flying. And, all this pressure for women to jump over 200 meters. And, a lot of people were saying that they didn't think anyone would be able to break the 200 mark, which is quite far to begin with. But, and I wasn't sure what to expect. And, when everyone's coming up to you, you're like, oh, you'll be fine. Like, don't worry. And it's like, I wasn't worried until, everyone's like, oh, you're going to be fine. Don't worry. You're not going to crash. It's like, it kind of gets to you. And so Mackenzie and I had a talk and he's like, yeah, like, I think you just, like, it's just a big ski jump. And, he gave me a little pep talk going into it. And, after that, I was ready, and he gave me some advice on how, the little quirks of that hill. And, my first jump, I almost went 200 meters. And so it was kind of a good moment, a good team moment. And, yeah.
We have about a half of our audience at times is in the US. So for those American folks listening, 225 meters is 738 feet. It's it's also 246 yards. So I can't even hardly fathom what that's like. But I gotta go back to
a quarter of a kilometer. I don't know what that is in miles, but
let's look it up. 225 meters is
we got Melissa going 150 kilometers an hour, which is like 110 miles an hour down a racetrack.
90, like closer to 90 miles an hour.
Yeah, Alex flying a quarter of a kilometer through the air.
Yeah, 13.
My speed was low, so
That's what is your speed going down? Like flying down?
Ski flying, my top speed was 102.1 kilometers an hour, so it's not that fast. Regular jumping is about
speed limit on the highway.
Yeah.
So my average, the better you are at ski jumping, the slower you're actually going. It's most people don't realize that.
Yeah. I tried to, during World Championships, we don't have enough people for a mixed team. So in a mixed team, there's 2 guys and 2 girls, and group 1 is girls and they go from a women's gate. Group 2 is guys, they go from a guy's gate. Group 3 is girls, they go from a girl's gate. Group 4 is guys and they go from a guy's gate. And so we have 4 girls and 1 guy. And I was like, let me jump from the men's gate. Like, come on. And like, my coach was like, we can ask, but, we'll see what happens. And, no one would let me jump from a men's gate. And one of my jumps in Oslo in Norway, I accidentally touched the outside of the tracks. And so I was going slower than the men, and I still outjumped a decent amount of them. And I was pretty proud of myself. I didn't go far, but, it was kind of like a good, like, yeah, let's see what I can do.
Oh man, I got two quick ones here. So Max, what was your furthest jump?
I don't want to talk about it with you guys.
Okay, we don't
I
have to go there.
went like 148 in Ruka, Finland, just like 20 years ago, something like that.
148 meters.
Adjust what would that adjust to for inflation today, Max?
Yeah.
Be like 300, 350.
Okay, and the other thing I wanted to get to was we talked early on about the mental state, and on the bull riding side of things, when it went the best for me riding was when I had that clear mind. But my problem was I didn't know how to get there every time. So what are you doing to get in the mental? What did you both do to get in that mental state where you weren't thinking, and like it's almost a meditative kind of state, or there's something to it, but I did not know how to get there every time, and I wish I would have, because maybe I would have been better. I would have had a longer career, but that was my biggest problem, is not knowing how to get there every time. And I would still like to learn how to do this, because I think it would help a lot of things every day, honestly.
Oh,
yeah.
Honestly, for me, it's about feeling everything and, letting myself feel emotions. And it's accepting that, well, I could absolutely tip in and smash my face on the ground at 50 meters, or I could set a new world record, right? Like, it's something my sports psychologist calls the two truths, right? You could get what you want, or you could get what you don't want. But when you're able to accept either outcome, you're not focusing on, what could happen. Oh, maybe, what if, I want it. It becomes just, I'm going to do my sport, and I'm going to just focus on this, and I'm going to feel all these things, and I'm just going to do it. And I've become known as the Queen of Redemptions. I'll absolutely shit the bed and have a terrible jump, and I'll come back and win the next round and move up 10 places, or I'll like shank out a second round and finish in 23rd when I'm normally kind of top 10, top 5, and then I'll come back the next day and finish on the podium. Or at World Championships, my issue tends to be I'm too excited, and so I get a little bit too rowdy, and I push on my skis a little bit too much, and I'm a little too aggressive. And anyways, I will I finished in 26th, my worst result all season in World Championships. I was favorite to win, and going into the big hill, there was a lot of pressure because, it was my last shot. I don't have a team that is at a level where we could all, medal. So it was my last shot for a medal for World Championships. It was my last shot to get, 2 golds in 1 year, right? That was one of my big goals for the season. And I remember 6 months ago sitting in a physio office with a broken foot, and I was like, I'm going to be the first female athlete ever to win junior and senior world championships in 1 year. My physio's looking at my broken foot like, yeah, not a chance. And, when I'm able to feel that pressure, it feels like I'm almost pushing it down the hill, and it feels like I'm channeling this pressure down the hill, and I feel like I can like ride on it almost. It's a weird feeling, but it's the best feeling.
Melissa, I want to get back here, but I gotta ask a follow-up here now, because where did you learn that, Alex? Like, this is, you mentioned a sports psychologist, but that's probably part of the process, but I just want to drill down further on that.
Well, part of the thing is my sports psychologist, she does not sugarcoat anything for me. If I'm doing something stupid, or, I'm being too hard on myself, I'm overworking myself, she'll just say it straight up. Or if I've had a bad result, she just says it. And, having someone who is there in your support system, who doesn't sugarcoat things and who just says things straight up the way they are, it helped me learn to accept my failures and take them as lessons, not as failures. And so once I started to do that, I became like really good at channeling the pressure into the right place. And instead of, I want to, have this result, I want to go this far, I want to have this judge's score, it became, okay, I'm just putting all of this into my jump. It's going to be my power. It's going to be my drive. And then I really started to thrive when I was able to do that. And I also say that I have Swiss cheese brain. I've got all these thoughts, like holes in the Swiss cheese. I've got all these thoughts, but when you add a little bit of pressure, all the holes are gone.
Interesting.
I like it.
Yeah. Well, first off, muscle memory. You have to do it, right? You can't just think like, oh, okay, I want to go be this Olympic champion and never gone down. Like, if we're talking about the power of the mind. So you do have to rely on your muscle memory and that practice. But I've been part of studies with your brain of how powerful visualization is. Like your brain doesn't know if you physically have done something or whether you've imagined it. And so that's up to your mind control and how positive and how quiet you can keep that conversation in your mind, because you, at the end of the day, can either, be your best ally or your worst enemy of what kind of conversation and what kind of noise. And that's what Allie's talking about, is like that channeling and that focus and that bubble, and how she uses that. The brain also doesn't understand the negative part. So let's go back to rodeo. If I'm running in there and I'm like, I don't want to, like, don't knock a barrel. Don't knock a barrel. All your brain's hearing is knock the barrel, knock the barrel. Right. So like you have to change your language into it always being positive and not focusing on the end result, because that will be what it'll be. You still have to do your job in the beginning for that to play out. So and when you were talking, Ellie, about before three jumpers before you, and that's when you kind of really zone in. It's so important in your preparation prior to that you keep that noise level in your mind to a minimum. I remember one year I'd crashed in Altenburg, Germany. This is in Eastern Germany. It was right before the 2006 Olympics. The overall World Cup title was on the line. I was terrible on this track. I was scared of the track. I needed to win at least the bronze medal at that World Cup to earn the title. And, I didn't even know if I could get down the track. And essentially what I had to do to get through that race was, instead of worrying about what could happen down the track where I've been crashing, because that's where your mind will go, is we train like track and field athletes. So sprinting drills, lots of sprints and jumps and power. So I'm warming up and I literally had to control my mind of right foot, left foot, right foot, left foot. Like keep it as simple and stupid as possible. Like numb myself so that I didn't overwhelm or get myself into that tizzy that is easy. Like that's where your mind wants to go, and that's how you can do it. It takes practice, but I know what it's like to feel it.
Wow.
Yeah, I do things like that too, because it's like when you think about that, like very mechanical movements, or like you're putting your gear on and you make it very routine and very mechanical, you're able to take your attention and put it solely into that, so you're not overthinking what you're doing. You're not becoming obsessed. Like it's not an intentional thing, but you become obsessed with maybe the results, or what if I crash, what if, and you shift that away. You move away from that path of thought, and the more gently you can move away from the path of thought, like, okay, let's work on tightening my boots, and like, how does it feel when I'm tightening my boots and I'm putting my my wedges in and that sort of thing. You're taking the focus very gently, because the harder you try and pull your focus away from it, the more it's going to stay on what you're trying to move away from.
It's like active meditation in a way. Like everybody thinks
it
of
totally
meditation
is.
when you're sitting there like a Buddha on your pillow with your eyes closed. Well, you can still do your meditation in an intense environment, and that is how you're able to kind of just really zone in and get into that bubble.
Oh yeah, speaking of meditation, that's another thing I've used to train my brain. So like when I am meditating and I'm like visualizing and I'm super calm and relaxed, I started with saying it out loud, and then as I got better and better, I would say it quieter and quieter until I can just say it in my head. And when I say this phrase to myself, it pulls me into that focus where I'm super like zoned in, but I can feel my heart rate drop the second I say it to myself. It's like it slows down immediately, and so I have it written on like my skis, so I see it when I go to, like, I always fist bump my bindings, and I give my bindings a little safety check. I fist bump them and I like look at my little saying, and then I get on the bar.
I used to get made fun of. Sorry, Ted, one more thing, because this comes up in rail racing too, of like, what is a trigger, something that can like help get you there. People used to make fun of me all the time because I'd be on the start line yawning. And they didn't understand what's wrong with her. Did she not get enough sleep? And I had trained my diaphragm. I had trained my brain and my diaphragm of like, when you get that release, like when you totally expand that diaphragm, you get that deep breath, and then all of a sudden you feel all the endorphins, you feel that release through your entire body, and it's just like you've taken something that is just got you so you're so chilled out and ready. It's
like the same kind of idea.
It works.
Yeah, it totally does.
Alex, you mentioned a saying. You don't have to share it with us. It can be, I don't know if you're willing to, but you mentioned a saying.
Yeah.
You can tell us what it is. Do you want to tell us what it is?
It's why not?
I don't want to know.
It's like, it's tattooed on my hand. It's like a pretty public thing, and it's like, but it's like it's not like a why can't I win? It's what's stopping me. It's kind of my way to remind myself that I am the only thing stopping me, and it kind of puts me in the right mindset to compete. Because at the end of the day, my biggest competition is myself. I'm always trying to one up myself. Even though I am starting against other girls and I'm jumping against other girls, I'm trying to beat other girls' records. I'm still, at the end of the day, competing against myself. I'm trying to one up myself. I'm trying to be better than I was yesterday.
Well, that's all that you can control, right?
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
You can't. What you do is all that you can control, and then the outcome will be what it'll be. You can't control the girl from Finland and what she's doing. You just got to focus on yourself. That's just burning energy. Yeah.
And also, like, especially with a sport where the environment is so heavily dependent, like, on like outcomes. Like, I'm sure for you it's the same. Like, weather conditions and humidity change everything, and wind, and the sun, and how cloudy it is, and how dense the air is, and if there's fog or if there's no fog, and all those things impact how far you'll jump. And obviously there is a system to try and help make it more fair, but it's not perfect. It's a guesstimate. Everyone has different weights and ski lengths and suit sizes, and there's a whole bunch of factors to that. But you can't help it if someone got really lucky with conditions and had a good jump, or you can't control if they got gated down and got the gate comp that you didn't. So you can only control yourself, especially in extreme sports.
Okay, there's so many more things that we can talk about here. Wacey, you haven't said much for a while. I want to let you.
I'm just taking it all in, man. You're good.
Okay.
Honestly, it's funny because I consider myself a coach, not an athlete, because I coach from like 2007 till 2015. This is like a lesson for me. This is phenomenal what we're getting from Alex and Melissa. So cool. I'm loving it.
I wish that I would have known these things then.
Yeah.
And talking to you, we have very similar approaches to sport. And I think I don't think it's a coincidence that there's some levels of success that are shared there, but especially in an extreme sport, I think you kind of have the same thing as us, where it's like it's a lot less forgiving when you make mistakes.
Well,
it can cost you a lot more.
And that could be, there's a couple things here. So Melissa, I guess I didn't know you well enough a long time ago, and I still know you super well, but I've been around you lots of different times between your time at the Stampede and in the rodeo business, and when you came back after Vancouver. And I remember the quote was, "I feel like I let Canada down," going from second to out of the medals, right? In that second run. What was going through your mind on that run? Was it totally a mistake, or was that in your head, or where were you at with that?
Yeah, for sure. It was, that moment was something I trained for 15 years of my life. I acknowledged that when I was on the start line of like, okay, this is what I prepared for. Here I am. I have the opportunity to win a gold medal at my home Olympics. Like, what would that feel like? And it was, I didn't know until that moment. And I felt so calm. I was so happy. Like, I had the biggest smile on my face. You couldn't see it because I have black visor. There's like 20,000 people lying trackside. It's wild, the energy. And I had pushed for my fourth and final run, where I had that opportunity to win the gold medal, sitting in the silver medal position. I had pushed a personal best and a Canadian record. So, we're bent over pushing the sled, and then we dive on and we steer the sled with pressure points. And I was in corner 6, and I had made a mistake of where I came out of there a bit too early, bumped the wall, pushed me late into corner 7. And then that's where I had the oscillations in the corner and literally fell out of the corner. And that was like it wasn't a crash. It slowed me down a lot. And so I knew in that moment, I'd never done that before. And I knew, I was like, oh, I'm in trouble. But I kept, more aerodynamic, got quieter on my sled. And when I crossed the finish line and saw a number 4 on the clock, You need to see a number one because they go in reverse order. I knew I had dropped out of the medal position. And that was terrifying. That is like an athlete's worst nightmare ever. And I knew the most important thing for me to do in that moment was to grab our maple leaf, our flag, and show all of Canada how proud I was. Keep your head tall. Like, it was devastating to me. And I went into the finish house. And at that point, I probably had the opportunity to go and hide and never talk to the media. And I thought, no, that's bullshit. Like, the Canadians have followed me for 4 years. This is like the most attention amateur sport, especially Canada, skeleton, has ever got in Canada. I'm not going to go hide. I'm going to go out and speak my truth. And there's not going to be any excuses, and just say, I'm sorry. I'm human. I made a mistake. That wasn't the plan. And it was scary. That was scary when you're going through that whole line of hundreds of cameras and reporters, and they're wanting the dirt. This is drama. And I was just raw and real, and I cried. I wasn't really a crier, and it was, you're just saying sorry. You're brokenhearted, and that's all that I could say. And I had no idea the impact that would have during those Olympics and in Canada, and what it did for Canadians, like the letters, and this is well before social media, essentially. Like, Facebook was maybe just getting started a few years before, so it's a different time altogether. But for people to go to the lengths of efforts to contact me and say how proud they were of all of the Canadians, and loving every sport, and whether you won or you didn't win, it just sort of showed like how we rallied together as a country. And just appreciated everybody, not as machines, as athletes, as humans. And it was like, that was like a really, really special time.
You mentioned
2010 was magic.
It was.
Sorry, go ahead,
I
Ted.
remember parts of it. I want to say, you said turn 6. Was it like, how much control was there going in? Was there a moment where you were thinking like, oh, I need to make this point, or like, was there a loss of focus at some point in that part? Or like, I kind of missed that part as to where, what
like
happened?
Why it happened. Well,
yeah, did you hit a rock on the thing, or like, what happened?
Yeah. So I don't like to use my feet. I'm more of a subtle driver and being quite quiet. And the ice conditions had changed quite a bit. It got quite a bit colder. And so it was just you're going fast. Like at that point in the track, we're going about 110 kilometers an hour. Like down at the bottom, we're going 145 or 43, I guess, for me. And it was just a quick decision of where I all of a sudden felt like I was a bit too high and I needed to get out of there. And I was just a bit too aggressive in coming out of there. And it was something very slight. Like, I only missed the medal by 24 hundredths. So it was minuscule of how far I was off of winning a medal, which really, I wouldn't change it to this day. Like, it was something that was a part of my plan. I feel like it had more impact of when I go and speak to corporations and school groups, and everybody's worried about failing and the outcome of that. And essentially, I did that on the world's biggest stage, and the sun still came up the next day. And it's how you handle it, and your character and your integrity of you can't be afraid of the bad things happening. It's essentially of how you handle it.
I wanted to kind of put this together a little bit, because it seems like there's I might be making it up too, but there's a bit of similarities. You won bronze in 06 in Torino. Alex won bronze in
2022.
Yeah, in 2022. So would there be any I don't want to say, maybe it's advice for Alex going into her, hopefully what is her next Olympics in 2026 in Italy, Milano and Cortina in 2026? Mm-hmm.
That's kind of neat. That's gonna be back in Italy too. I forgot about that.
That's really funny.
I know. Listening to her speak is she's right on track. Like, she's got it all figured out. And the simpler that you can make it, and the more whatever your tricks are to alleviate that pressure, that's going to be the most important. you just keep your head down and do the work that needs to be done, and know that, anytime that you get overwhelmed, like whether that's with media, like I don't know what it's like to be you in this position with social media now, right? Like we had so much media training back in the day, and now it's almost like you can kind of control it, or it's just there and it's just part of how things were. Like it used to be quite a big deal in the earlier years, right? So just control what you control and make time for all the things, whether they're good and bad, because there's some athletes that would be like, no, I'm doing blackout, I'm not talking to anybody, but then that almost created more pressure. So I had a plan of like, no, I've got a time in the morning. Okay, so we're training in the morning, we're sliding in the afternoon, and then this is my hour that I do my media. So book these interviews in here. And it was just part of it. So it was never overwhelming when you got to the big stage, in a sense. But she sounds like she's right on track, and as long as it's fun, make sure it's fun. it's a want to mentality, not a have to mentality, because we all know what that's like. And just make sure you find those things in your daily regime that make you want to do it.
Yeah. And there was a point where I didn't like want to go to training, but so I had knee surgery last April. I crashed and I tore my meniscus and partially tore my ACL. And so it didn't repair the ACL. It had grown over with scar tissue. The surgeon went in and was like, I've never seen this before. This is insane. And so I made a full recovery from knee surgery. And one of my first training sessions back, I crashed and my foot snapped in half. It bent around my boot. And so it happened so quickly, and it hit the top of my binding, and I was jumping a small hill, so it was really low speed, so the binding didn't release, and my foot essentially like bent around my boot, and the Liz Franks ligament, so the main stabilizer in my front landing foot, it snapped so hard that it ripped a hole into the bone of my foot. And so I continued to train on it for months, and we finally got the MRI back. It took like more than a month to get the MRI back, because the doctor who did the original like examination said, no, you're fine, I'm not writing you a prescription, like just suck it up, like 2 weeks you can start training again. And so I was training on quite literally a hole in my foot. And once I had a conversation with a doctor, and I was in a doctor's office, and my coach was translating because he's Slovenian, and I was bawling my eyes out because this doctor was telling me that he thinks I'll never ski jump again. And that's when I started to want it, because I'd always use the excuse like, this is you're young, this is your like first season, like it's fine that you didn't do this, it's like it's okay you failed. Like I was giving myself excuses, and it tended to be like, oh, it's okay, you're young, you've got time. But once it's like, this could be it, there's no more time, that like I started enjoying the working out. All those things I'd taken for granted, I started to love. Like I love going to weight training, and I love doing hurdles, and I love going to just hang out with my teammates and do that sort of thing. And once that all changed, I started performing really, really well.
That's one thing, Allie. And the old coach of the U.S. team, his name was John David Jarrett. He actually coached Billy DeMong, who won the Olympics in 2010.
Yeah, I know who Billy DeMong is.
I feel like such an idiot for our interaction.
He was married to a skeleton athlete. Did you know that? He's married to Katie. She was a skeleton athlete.
Yeah. Oh, no. Yeah, I knew that. Yeah. And it was the coach, JD, or John David Jarrett. That whole you're young, he's like, you can do anything in life. You can be an athlete once. Like you can't switch that career at 35, right? Like you have your 20s and your teens. That's it. So embrace that.
Yeah, and you know what? I've become friends with another one of the girls. She's a Japanese girl, and she is super successful, but still so down to earth. And she's like the kind of person that you want to be around, because not only does she she makes me want to be a better athlete, but she makes me want to be a better person too, And it's one of those people where it's like, I'm very happy to have them, in my little circle,
You mentioned
Allie can be in the category of JB Mooney now. Okay?
I guess. Well, that's what I wanted to ask about that part of it now too, though. It was kind of came up earlier, yeah, but the injury side, because so I have this like big gnarly lump here from my collarbone, broke my jaw, dislocated my shoulder, I got a wrecked hip right now from playing hockey at Max's skate. Somebody tried to pass me a puck, and I blew my hip flexor out. It's
3
been wrecked
p.m.
for like,
Tuesdays at FCA.
yeah, it's still messed up, Max. It was like 6 weeks ago. But injuries, I wrecked my shoulder and dislocated it a whole bunch of times and had surgery on it. Then I never ever could really get past that because I was always worried about the injury. That's another sports psychologist time, which I wish I would have went to. But for you guys, like Alex, to go and come back from this, and Melissa, I don't recall injuries on your end, but there had to be plenty from your sport too. But Alex, talk about that for a bit too.
One thing I'll say is the life of an amateur athlete and a ski jumper is we're always injured.
Yeah.
You always have something.
But you said it's not that dangerous.
Yeah, but it's like always minor injuries. Like I stretched all the ligaments in my shoulder crashing, and I smacked my head into a wall and got a concussion, and I broke my nose smacking my head into a wall again. Like little things, it's like that just take a couple months to get over, but it like still kind of interrupts your progress. Is more the injuries that ski jumpers end up with. And but I don't know. My boyfriend and I, we always say this to each other. It's sigo the sag. It means win or go to the tomb. So it's like win or die.
Yeah.
And so it's a little bit of a joke, but it's also like I'm gonna commit to this because in ski jumping, it's more dangerous if you don't commit to what you're doing than if you kind of like go in trying to play it safe. It's so much more dangerous doing that. And I've gotten much more hurt trying to play it safe than when I fully committed all the way through my jumps.
What is playing it safe in ski jumping? I can't imagine. Like, is this somebody like I've seen? Well, our buddy Kino, remember that day Wacey had the video going over a jump behind a ski-doo, and he was like rolling the windows down, trying to like catch his right?
Yeah, it's kind of like giving up on the speed and bailing early, and that's way, way, way more dangerous, Max, than if you like follow through your whole jump. Because when you follow through with your whole jump, you stay on top of the speed, and even if you're not gonna go in for a good landing, if you're on top of the speed, it hurts your knees, your shins, your hips all a lot less.
So I never had the issue of going too far, but yeah, fully.
I've only ever really had one jump where my bailing out was better than going too far because I was still kind of like, I don't know, what's 2 meters in feet in the air?
6 feet.
Allie, have you ever done the Top Gate Challenge at Lake Placid?
No, I would die. I'm not allowed to do that. Yanko's already told me I'm not allowed because I asked.
Okay, so that was a thing back in the day. Stefan Reed and I would always do it. Like we'd be at a training camp last day, we'd go Top Gate. You would like kick up the old goal, pop your chest, and there was no way you're going less than 100 meters. And it was a small
you jumped
hill.
cron?
It was terrible. The cron that exists today, no.
Okay, well, I train out of like between gate 4 and 8 on cron, if that gives you any idea of like that's my main training hill.
No, like, for sure. Oh, the Top Gate Challenge, like we were literally even in Placid going from like bar 5 and Top Gate's like 30.
Not be doing that. Yeah, I would not. Yeah. I think I'd blow up both my knees if I did that now.
You would.
I nearly did that in a World Cup, so you know.
Yeah.
And is that wrecking your knees on the jump? Like, is that where you'd like?
No, it's on the landing because there's an R1, so that's the curve where you jump from, and then there's R2, which is at the bottom of the hill, and at the bottom of this curve is the hill size. So that's kind of the last point where it is safe to land, and anything past that is so much like G-force, and it's just so high impact. And when you go that far, you tend to be coming in from behind, so you kind of lost your speed, and it's just so hard on your knees.
So is there a limit as to like a physical, like a limit based on physics for the distance that you can actually go, like the way that these are built? Are they building them differently?
Kind of, but if you have the right wind or you're going too high of a speed, like it can be really dangerous. Like there was one Slovenian guy, he went like 20 meters further than should be possible, and he just like collapsed because his body physically couldn't handle the gravity coming down on him.
Holy shit.
And that was the biggest problem with the Calgary jumps, right? Is that we couldn't...
That actually was a lie. That was, they just said that, but it wasn't actually true because we had enough gates to gate down. So it was just an old shape of a hill. It was an excuse they were using to close our hills down. So
right. I was
but the nickname Melissa for the Calgary
why
hills
don't they just move the dirt?
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Why don't like It doesn't make sense. Why can't they change the, the depth and the angles? I don't know.
What was the name,
It's
Max?
silly.
Elevator shaft. That's what it felt like on that hill.
Oh, really?
Felt like you're just falling down a
straight
shaft. Yeah, falling straight down. I love that hill. But no, we actually made modifications. A gentleman named John Servold. He's from Camrose,
Yeah,
Alberta.
he is the king of hills.
Internationally renowned. He's been at the last 10 Olympics in a row. He actually competed in 1988 at the Calgary Olympics, and then he coached me at the 2006 Olympics in Torino. We modified that hill 1,000 times, and we did it with our own money, with our own supplies, to kind of keep it somewhat up to date. And we did a pretty good job. So that if you're looking at like the Windsport ski jump facility, the second biggest jump actually had a decent profile.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. It was like, it was just an excuse given that, the general public didn't have the information to be like, okay, well, that's bullshit, right? Like they couldn't say, okay, this isn't true. Like, yeah, they have no frame of reference. We're not a ski jumping nation, so how would they know, right? Like no one goes and watches the practices or competitions that are held there, so they have zero frame of reference. It's not shown on TV. There's no broadcasting. And so recently we actually now have our events broadcast on CBC. They are at like 2 a.m, but it's a step in the right direction.
I gotta go back to the injury side though. How do you mentally get over the injuries? And Melissa, jump in here too. But what is the process, or what do you do to get over these injuries so they're not in your head when you go back and go again, or are they?
Well, the first jump is definitely like a little bit more cautious, and obviously I'm starting on a smaller hill than I normally jump just to kind of like test things out. But I don't know, it's not something that I really struggled with. I was able to kind of put it aside because I have the skill to, shift my focus away from, whatever's stressing me and is kind of distracting me. So I knew that going into my first jumps again after injury, I was physically ready. I'd done my rehab. I was in possibly the best shape I have ever been in. I was running every day, which as a ski jumper, we don't really do that. So, I was running 5 kilometers every day and doing an hour and a half of core, 2 hours of core every day because I had nothing else to do. I couldn't walk. Like I was running the zero gravity treadmill, so it was no impact or like things like that, right? So I was working out a lot, getting myself ready to be competitive this winter. And so it was just like doing the work and doing what I could when I was hurt so that I knew I was ready going into it. Because that's really all you can do.
Melissa?
Yeah. So I'll focus a little bit more because obviously there's all different types of injuries, but the most important one that I think is important in all sports, especially in rodeo, is concussion. And when we were going into 2010, like we were still in the era of where you didn't have a concussion unless you were knocked out, right? That's what everybody was thinking. You didn't get pulled from your sport. You didn't understand what the warning signs were. So we were in Whistler in 2009 intensive training camp, and we thought that quantity over quality was more important. So we're thinking we're going to have the advantage at the 2010 Olympics if we can get down this track 10 times a day. What we didn't understand is what that was doing to our brains. And as I kind of mentioned earlier, is your brain is inside your skull in the shaken baby syndrome. And so we were all like in a fog. We were trying to do these 2-a-day trainings, and you would go in for lunch and you couldn't have the TV on and have conversations at the same time. Like I didn't understand what was going on. And same with my other teammates it was the concussions. One of my last training runs in that camp, I had a crash in corner 16, that the corner where the loser had died. Eventually, like when we get to the 2010 Olympics, and hauled off into the hospital. I exploded my sled. I had stitches in my face, and that was the last run that I got to take until we started that Olympic season. So we were back in Whistler the end of September sliding, and I was terrified. Now all summer we had done all the promos, like CTV was doing the Believe campaign. I was one of the athletes with my commercial. And here it's like you're focusing on winning on this gold medal. And I'm asking all of Canada if you believe, and all the sponsorship stuff. Well, every day I'm waking up, I'm not sure if I can even get down that track, let alone make that Olympic team and challenge for a gold medal. So that goes back to the mental strength of no matter all that negative talk that you're having in your mind, of looking yourself in the mirror and like say, like literally convincing yourself that, you know, you're good at what you do, power of positive thinking, like put all that crap aside and just focus on what you need to do today. That's it. Don't get involved with what's happening down the road. We're going to the gym today. We're sprinting today. We're at the physio today, like just not getting overwhelmed. And when we went back to the track, I was terrified. I cannot describe that type of fear of where I was sick to my stomach. I talked to my coaches and I asked, I can't go from the top today. Like, I don't want to go 140 kilometers an hour on my first run down after that devastating crash. Can I go to corner 3? And that like is kind of unheard of. I was really being a bit of a pussy, essentially. And they allowed me to. And what I didn't understand is kind of what Ali was saying is going slower. I didn't know how to go slow. So that run, when I went from corner 3, I was like a windshield wiper, no control. My body was all stiff. And it scared me even worse. And so I'm down at the bottom. I'm all quiet. Like all my teammates are coming down from the top. So John Montgomery, who ended up winning the gold medal in 2010, they're all high-fiving each other and cheersing. Yay, we didn't die. Like, we're excited. Okay, let's get going fast now. Because everybody has those first runs of the season nerves. And I'm in the back of the truck as we're getting hauled up to the hill with my equipment. And I'm thinking, I got to go from corner 3 again. I like, if I can't do it from corner 3, I can't go from the top. And John like looked at me and he was like, Mel, he gave me a kick in the ass. And he was like, Mel, you are one of the best sliders in the entire world. Like, stop wasting your time. Stop wasting our time. We're a team. I believe in you. You're going from the top. And I was just like, wow. Like, and that was sort of the rally of the team of where he saw that I was in a pretty low spot. I was terrified. So I'm like, okay, I'm up at the top and I'm just shaking. And I'm thinking, okay, maybe if I throw up right now, I don't have to go down the track. And I remember seeing like that, the red light to the green light changing to a green light. And they announced my name, like Melissa Hollingsworth, the track is clear, ding dong. Like, everybody knows what that feeling is like, of that instant, like, adrenaline rush. And I just like surrendered. I was like, okay, I'm either gonna live or I'm gonna die, but I better just let this go. Like, that's baggage, let it go. And that run was like one of like a nice, smooth, clean run. I felt like I was connected to my sled in the track and the energy, and there was no looking back from there. Like, that's when I went on and won the overall World Cup title, was going into the Whistler 2010 Olympics as the #1 ranked woman in the world. And it all was that pivotal moment of whether I was allowing fear to guide me or whether it was just like, let it go, surrender. So, and that, if we're talking about, it's kind of a merging story of concussions and a very serious issue of where we then learned how to manage that. But that was like the biggest thing, but how to overcome that. And then, you know, obviously being very sensitive to what concussions can do to people, obviously, of making sure you're not pushing past those limits and knowing when the time is to stop. Having people around you to tell you when it's time to stop is critical.
That's wild. That's so wild. There's something to this extreme sport part. Like, Alex, we talked about this right off the bat, but like, we've talked to different athletes in these different places, and rodeo and bull riding is extreme, and ski jumping and skeleton are extreme. I wonder if there's something different about some of us that do these things. I don't know.
I've
I don't know if
always
there's
been crazy.
Yeah, right from the beginning, because you mentioned this.
My mom and I were talking about this today, actually. You know, even before that, I was crazy. I was like, we have this staircase that goes down into our basement, but it's like a hole in our living room floor, and it just has railings. And as a child, I would put the couch cushions at the bottom of the rails like a toddler, and I'd jump the 6 feet down onto the couch cushions, and I'd run up the stairs, and then I'd do that again. Or I was like trying to climb up the curtains, or I was like trying to build wings to fly, and I was jumping off, you know, the monkey bars at the park, and I was trying to do all these things that most kids would be like shaking doing, and I was like, let's do it again, and so, you know, there's a video of my first time skiing, and I don't even try to stop. I just go straight down the whole hill, and my dad's like bombing after me, trying to catch up to me, and he's like yelling at me to stop or sit down, and then I try and go off this little jump, and you know, it's just the way I've always been. And you know, my dad is also an adrenaline junkie. He was a professional motocross rider, and he was a black belt in judo and jiu-jitsu, and so he also likes the adrenaline. So I wonder if part of it is learned, and seeing like both my parents are very adventurous, so learning to have no fear from them, or if it's something inherited, a little bit of both maybe.
Yeah, I'm complete opposite, actually, believe it or not. I'm not an adrenaline junkie. I'll think twice about a lot of things. And I think like with Skelton, I was young enough. I just thought, okay, I like to go fast, like whether I was on a horse or a snowmobile, or like I like tobogganing headfirst on my crazy carpet. So sure, let's try this. But as far as like being a daredevil and wanting to do crazy things, I've never ever been like that. I'm pretty analytical, and I'm going to think about like all the different things. And I think that was my strength in my sport of, and just kind of then learning how not to be fearful within that. But you take me out of that context, I don't know if I'd want to put some skis on and go down that ramp. Like I don't want to go downhill skiing. Like I'll do it, but it's not like, oh yeah, I'm not the first one to like sign up and be like, let's go see if we can die today.
Well, that's what I was going to kind of get to about like the bull riding side of things. Like bull riding hasn't been a ladies kind of side of things, but is that something you like? You're already in the barrel racing side of things, but like Alex, like what do you think on rodeo or Western sports? Like, is that anything on your radar much? Has it ever been? Have you been in the Stampede much, or what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I haven't lived at home since I was 14. I've spent my summers in Germany or Slovenia since I was 15 years old. So, I don't really have a lot of experience with that sort of thing. And I actually think I'm going to continue to live in Europe when I'm done my career in sport. So we'll see.
Are your parents over there, or you just got to go over there on your own?
Yeah, I'm all alone.
Holy.
I'm very fortunate that I have people over here now. Like I've made some friends, and I'm quite close with my boyfriend's family. And so I've kind of been adopted by people around me, so I'm not completely alone. But I got to see my dad yesterday for the first time in months, and I kind of see my parents kind of 2-3 times a year,
Wow.
and I spend 11 months away from home a year.
Holy smokes. That's called commitment, though. That's what a lot of folks aren't willing to do, to be at an elite level as an athlete or at anything really. Because like I don't want to go away from home that much anymore. Like I prefer home. Like I it's not easy to do that, but it's easier to do when you're 19, I guess. But
Yeah.
still.
Oh, well, I was just saying, like, my home is Europe now. I've been there for so long, and I have my own apartment. I pay my own bills, but
With that prize money. Yeah, the European adoption is like a real thing. I did that. I lived in Europe for about 5 years, and the beautiful part is like I was East Germany and Poland, and they take you in. Like
yeah, it's the same in
I started
Slovenia and Austria.
Yeah, I started a life there. Like I go to weddings in Europe now, like from friends that I hung out with in kind of my late teens, early 20s. It was amazing.
And in all honesty, I think part of it is being Canadian. Like people are so like, even if they don't know who I am, because up until recently no one knew who I was, but like people are so genuinely excited to meet me as a Canadian, not as a professional athlete or as a ski jumper or as world champion or an Olympic medalist. They're excited to meet me because I'm Canadian. And I find that when people find out where I'm from, they're so genuinely excited to interact with me and welcome me in, and learn about my experiences and my culture. And I'm excited to do the same about theirs. And so I think that like mutual respect for another culture and other experiences is why people love Canadians so much.
As a Canadian, this will be my first time going to Europe in May. Do you have any suggestions on the flight over? Any ways to prepare? Anything I need to know about going over there? Go ahead.
The best way to deal with jet lag is to sleep the whole plane ride, or as much as you can, like take a melatonin, whatever you need to do to pass out. And then when you get there, do not sleep until 9, 10, 12 o'clock, and then you'll be good. It tends to work like 1-2 days and you'll be good, because you have to be able to adjust to jet lag quick to be competitive.
Okay.
Yeah, so
I'm sure you know that. Yeah.
She told you what to do. This is how you do it. So when the first movie comes on, when you get your supper, well, I don't even know if they do movies anymore on the flights. Probably not. But
are we talking about that 6 o'clock flight to Frankfurt?
Yes. Are you going to Frankfurt, Ted?
No, we're flying I'm actually going with Donnie Joe, Jim Nevada, and Jeff Chadwick. We're gonna go golf in Scotland, and London, and like we're flying to London.
Okay, so
taking the train.
Yeah,
it's a
same
9
kind of flight.
It's a
Yeah.
9-hour flight. Okay, so when they serve you supper, get a cocktail, whatever cocktail you
or a
want, doesn't
couple, or
matter.
just-
Make it a double. Yeah.
Sure, yeah, have a cocktail, a melatonin, and a gravel,
Yep.
Oh, really?
and then
Holy
you'll sleep.
Trinity.
And then you'll sleep. And you got to
Yeah.
try and sleep. And if you can get 5 hours of sleep, then you're good. You're going to
I'll be
feel like
laughing.
crap when you land because you're going to get there at like 11 o'clock in the morning, but
You're gonna be
force yourself
groggy.
to stay up. We would go to the water slides is what we did. We always went to
Yeah.
the water slides. We
Wow.
spent that day at the water slides and stayed up, and then we fell asleep about 9 o'clock that night.
And you
It's
went
way
head
better
first
than
down
what
the
we
water
do.
slides, right?
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, just-
Yeah,
Yeah.
we just go for a run.
I guess that works too. Other thing I want to get to, Melissa, Amazing Race. I forgot that you even were on that. We're gonna talk about that really quickly, and then a little bit on the Stampede, as much as you want to get into that in the broadcast times with CBC and sports.
Yeah. Let's start with the Calgary Stampede. So I guess to bridge the gap of all this of why would I be involved with Calgary Stampede, my dad raised bucking horses, and so he's
Good
had
ones
some
too. Pedro.
Yes,
I remember
Pedro, Wilson Sanchez,
Yeah.
Black Feathers. So some of those names pop up of they've been at Calgary, the NFR, or whatever.
And your dad, Darcy Hollingsworth.
Darcy
Everybody
and
knows, yeah.
Tammy. Those
Yeah.
are my parents. So which is actually pretty cool. When I was training for my first Olympic Games, Graded Coconut was actually at our house. And that's when he was a 3-year-old stud. And I remember going out into the pens and I got to pet on him. And the reason he was there is because Winston Bruce, they needed, I think it was a bit of a drought or something. My memory might be a little bit foggy on this, but regardless, they had to place some studs elsewhere and told dad to come down and pick out some studs, and he picked him out. And something got hurt, I think, in the novice lineup for Calgary that year. And they were like, we got to bring that stud back. We're going to throw him in the novice. And then all of a sudden they figured out he was Graded Coconut.
Oh boy.
So, but he
And,
did
like,
breed 17 of our mares. And like dad had a fairly good start on his breeding program prior to that, but that obviously really boosted.
Yeah,
So
five or 6-time world champion bucking horse. Who,
yes.
for your information, Alex, this horse was one of the buckinest horses, and Max, you might not know this, but there's a picture of Kelly Armstrong, who's another stock contractor. His kid was like 3 or 4 years old, was sitting on this horse in the back pens before a performance where they set a world record on that horse with a 95-point ride. Like, this is a bucking horse that you can be almost 100 points on, which is a perfect ride, and it's tame in the back pens. Total tame.
Yeah.
Totally tame.
Wow.
Which is a great testimony to that these horses aren't wild, they're not forced to buck. It's genetics and bloodlines, just like human athletes, and they love their job. They absolutely they know what they're out there to do. That's why they're, whether they're a left or a right delivery, they go out and circle out. That's why the guys know how much rein to take on all of them. Anyway, so yes, I come from rodeo background that way. I chose to do amateur Olympic sports, so I didn't get back into riding and barrel racing until around the 2010 Olympics. And they had just asked me, they were like, you know what, you know a little bit about barrel racing. This is in 2010 after those games, and it's CBC that's the host broadcaster. Why don't you come call the barrels? And I was like, well, that doesn't make sense. Like, it's usually somebody who is a professional barrel racer. Like, no, this is CBC. We're trying to, we want to talk to the rodeo community a little bit, but we want to pull in more like the Eastern community, people who don't watch rodeo, and be like, oh, wait a minute, why is Melissa on here doing this? Because they know her. So anyways, I guess I'd done a decent enough job that they had me come back every year. And then it sort of evolved into doing some hosting gigs of where I was interviewing the winners after they won the round and whatnot, and doing some of the profile vignette pieces with some of the cowboys, cowgirls, equine athletes, chuck wagons, doing all of that stuff for about 10 years. So in that time, I got to meet Nancy Chabai because she was one of our Canadian champion barrel racers. She also won around at Calgary Stampede. And in 2017, they had done a casting call for the Amazing Race Canada, and it was the hero season. And she had thrown out on her Facebook page of, oh, this is a bucket list of mine. Who wants to apply with me? Just to tell her friends. And I thought it was funny. I was like, sure, let's do it. And I only just knew her as an acquaintance, essentially, if we were up at same perf at a rodeo or interviewing her at Calgary. And and I had gone to a charity event in Victoria. John Montgomery, the host of who's my teammate in Skeleton, he's also the host of Amazing Race Canada, picked us up at the airport, and he had an Amazing Race clue card in the car. And I took a picture of it and I sent it to Nancy, and I was like, this stuff doesn't just happen. Come on, like the stars are talking to us, like call me crazy. Let's just apply and see what happens. And she was like, okay. So we put in our application video, and a twist on our story was we didn't really know each other anyways, right? Like everybody was either brother, sister, or in a relationship couple, or partners at work, or whatever it was. So that was it was an outstanding, cool journey. It was really neat. Learned a lot about myself. Unfortunately, they didn't show it, but I had tore my calf on the very first episode, and I was one-legged for the entire race. And so that was a very humbling experience for me, because my strength going in was, oh, I've got this confidence, I'm a strong, fast athlete. And then all of a sudden I'm like, I have one leg. This is terrible. But yeah, it was definitely an experience of a lifetime.
I don't know what else I need to ask, Wacey. You got anything else, Max?
No, I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm just taking notes on how to live my life with these two.
Yeah, I don't know about you guys, but I'm like fired up right now. I'm motivated. I'm gonna go to the gym after this. Like I'm gonna go probably lift some
This is
weights.
good time for golf season to arrive as well.
Yeah,
some of these things we take to the golf course.
Absolutely.
Broken wrist.
Oh, did that happen at hockey at 3 p.m. on Tuesday as well, Max?
Yeah, it did actually. Yeah.
What the hell?
Oh, boy.
How do you break a wrist at a shinny, dude?
Oh boy, going too fast. Probably on a breakaway. Hit the net. Fell down. Hit the net.
Panicked. Fell over.
4-0.
Yeah. Okay. There's a couple more things. Wacey, you've got the main question to ask, and then I'll probably remember what I was going to ask after that. So.
Oh yeah, I guess we'll go around the horn. We ask all of our guests on Cowboy Shit this question. Start with Melissa. We'll go on to Alex. Then we'll go to Max. But Melissa, what is your definition of Cowboy Shit?
Your guys' podcast per se, or just
no? Like that's the phrase Cowboy Shit. Yeah.
Or cowgirl shit.
Or cowgirl shit. Yeah. It's an interchangeable thing.
Yeah. I think going back to your authentic roots. So, obviously we're within the rodeo farming agricultural type community. So that could mean something to us of where we're just raw and real, and work hard and have fun along the way. It gives me some pride of like being able to bridge that a little bit to my life. When I was in Europe and I was sliding as an athlete, I was very, very proud to be from Alberta, to be from a rodeo family, and to have like that cowboy culture roots.
And the horse on your helmet, the horse skeleton.
Right. Yeah. And I had a horse skeleton painted, and then I actually had pictures of all the rodeo events on my chin guard, and they were real pictures of my family members and like me barrel racing and stuff. It was all sketched, and that was important to me at that time, because that's the last piece that I'm putting on my head before I'm sliding down, and it kept me grounded to remember who I was in my core.
All right, Alex, you're up next.
Yeah, definitely. Having lived away from home for so long, when I think of Cowboy Shit, to me it's like home, because I'm from Calgary, I'm from Alberta, and when my teammates and I talk about home, it's one of the jokes we make is like, we're from the cowboy place. Like when people are like, oh, like what's it like in your part of Canada? And my teammate Natalie and I, we have a joke where we're like, cowboys. That's it. That's our only explanation we'll give. We'll be like, cowboys, and they're like, okay. And so it's something that our team, when we're listening to a hype up song as a team, it is most oftentimes like country music, and we're screaming in the car, like listening to like old school country. And that's what we did for our hype up for World Championships. For the team event, we got cowboy hats and we put Canada on the front of them, and we put on cowboy hats and listened to country music, and we were yelling every country song that was coming on. And our biggest team hype up is Save a Horse, Ride a Cowboy, the Big and Rich song. Yeah. That is our team hype up song. So our songs alternate, but they're often like that kind of like party country music, just so it's like really high energy, and everyone's getting excited. And yeah, so it's definitely something that's like kind of makes me think of my team, but also makes me think of being home.
You mentioned old school country music. What is your definition of old school country music?
He just said Big and Rich.
Big and Rich would be probably the definition there.
That's like
That was like
that's like
03. It's pretty old.
2003. Yeah, that's like I was like,
Yeah.
I karaoke that song on the weekend.
Oh, man. Okay,
I'm
Max,
actually
what
on
do
an
you-
Alabama.
But also,
thing.
may I add that I wasn't born yet in 2003, so to me,
Yeah,
that's
so
old
this
school.
old school in her world, man.
Okay, Max, what do you got?
Max, you're up.
Oh, it's similar to Allie. It was my identity when I lived in Europe, right? Cowboy hat, Western Canada. It just fit, and the music and whatever. I work a corporate job now, and I wear cowboy boots and blue jeans to work every day. Culture, man. It's what it is.
Yeah, we're the Europeans, we're just cowboys. Honestly, that's all they say of says.
Yeah.
Really?
And always ask about Calgary Stampede. Everywhere I went, like
Yeah.
if I was in Japan,
Okay.
anywhere, they're like, "Oh, you're Canadian." Calgary Stampede. Everybody knew about Calgary Stampede.
Mhm.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's neat that, like you're really proud that type of culture isn't just within our little province, that it is worldwide to be known for something.
It's pretty
Well,
cool.
So the last week on the show, I kind of made some comments about the Calgary Stampede, so I might not be invited back for a while. But you guys were talking about, both of you, Alex and Melissa, were talking about a sport commission and getting in trouble with the sport commission over cussing or something. Wasn't there something about that? We don't have to talk about that, but like who are these people making these?
Our media guy gets mad at me, and CBC also has gotten mad at me. I met the guy who had to bleep out all my swears from the Olympics and then again from the World Championships when I won. And he was like, "Are you the small little ski jumper?" And I'm like, "Well,
No.
yeah." He's like, "You're the young one, yes?" And I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Do you know how much bleeping out you I had to do during the Olympic Games?" I'm like, "No." He's like, "You swear a lot." I'm like,
Wow.
That's like Rocker Steiner at Vegas this last year.
Oh boy. So I guess
I
that's
feel
why.
I want to get to that.
I feel like when you win an Olympic medal, when it was very like we were expected to come in 8th at best, and you win an Olympic medal, I feel like you deserve to swear.
You've earned a few F-bombs there.
We
I love
earned
that.
it, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man, I'd like to take this time to apologize to absolutely nobody. Oh man. Well, this was so awesome. Thank you. Thanks, Max, number one, for lining it all up, and thank you to Alex and Melissa, Wacey, everybody. Thanks for being here today. Thanks for taking the time. Sorry we kept you up so late over there. But this was a lot of fun. Thank you.
You got some new fans back home.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, and best of luck to you, Alex, at your. We didn't even ask where you're going next. What's the next event? Like, what's your schedule?
So this is the season finale, so you have to qualify throughout basically the entire season. So because of my injury, I did miss like half the World Cups, including like the ones that I missed for World Junior Championships. So I missed more than, out of 26 events, I think I missed 14 or something like that. And so my ranking wasn't as good as I wanted it to be, but I still qualified within the top 30 to go to the grand finale. And so the top 30 girls overall get to go and compete in the final. So
Where is that,
one last
Allie?
World Cup to win. We're in Loutitt.
Wait.
Jumped in the big hill. I've never jumped this hill before. I'm excited.
Say hi to Anthony Quizma for me. He'll be there.
Okay.
How do we watch? Where do we go to watch this? You said CBC.
It's going to be on CBC. So it's very exciting that CBC is finally like broadcasting our events. And, part of it is that now we kind of have basically every weekend all season, we've had at least one girl in the top 5, and we haven't gone a weekend now without having a girl in the top 10, which hasn't really happened before. So, it's been a while since we've had girls that consistent for Canada, and now they're really showing it. And so it's really exciting.
Well, best of luck to you out there. Thanks for
How can
listening.
people
We'll be
follow
watching.
you, Alex? What's your handles and stuff so people can stay up to date and follow along with your journey?
All my social medias are the same. It's Alex_Loutitt with 2 T's on the end of Loutitt.
Loutitt.
Titt.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks everybody for joining us, Melissa. All the best to you out there as well, and we'll see you again soon. Have fun in Arizona the rest of the winter.
Thank you. I will.
We'll see you.
Thanks, guys.
See you.
Yeah, nice chatting with y'all. Good luck, Allie.
Dum da da dum da da dum da da dum da 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 da. Dum da da dum da da dum da da dum da 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 da.
Thanks again to our friend Max Thompson for lining us up. Max is Preston's boss at H2 Safety.
He's become a good buddy over the years.
He's
too,
a
old
buddy,
Max.
yeah.
Yeah, he's
I like
good
Max.
stuff.
He man, and the way that all came together, he called me he's called me a bunch of times and I didn't know how serious he was. Like I was like, yeah, I'm pumped that he wants to do this. He wants to have the show together. But I was like, oh yeah, okay, like we'll get it lined up. And then he was like, yeah, we'll do it Monday. And then I kind of I forgot about it a little bit. Then he calls me and he's like, hey, you ready to go for the show in the morning? And I'm like, oh fuck, like I'm not ready at all.
I'm not ready at all, dude.
Sorry, I'm not really ready at all. So he's like, yeah, we got to do this today. And I'm like, oh, okay, shit. All right. So I changed a few things around and I was at the house luckily when it all went down. And then Alex just jumps on the Zoom. I got an email. She's like, hey, Alex is in the Zoom. I'm like, oh, son of a bitch. So I jumped in there really quick. And then I was like, hey, good to see you. Like I was trying to not let him make her wait too long. Cause it was like half an hour. She was like a half an hour early or more. So get everybody around. I was like, hey, she's here. Let's get this thing going. So thanks again for making it happen though, Max. I won't doubt you now. Not gonna doubt. Not gonna doubt it. I'm gonna make
Max
sure
gets shit done.
Yeah, I'm gonna make sure this is. I'm ready next time. So,
well, and shout out to those girls, man. It's awesome. It was cool to see the kind of the gap, generational gap, and them talk about even how similar their experience. Yeah, so it's really cool to hear that, and it was awesome. And even talking to Alex, how mature and dialed in she is for her age. It's damn impressive. So it was really cool.
I got some thoughts there with kind of how when we talked to Kendall Pearson about winning the national high school finals in the breakaway, it seemed like there was a bit of similarities on the mindset, the mental side of it. But yeah, I loved that chat. That was, like I said, I'm pumped up. We're trying to finish the show out here today. We just did the interview this afternoon, and now we're doing the top and bottom afterwards, and it's 5:00 Calgary time, and I gotta go get to the gym and do some stuff here now. So, and finish all these emails that came in today. So got lots to do. But Wacey, we talked about Houston and Calgary off the bat, and we got a couple more things about that before we wrap the show up.
Yeah. So another thing that happened in the 4 round in Houston, JB Mooney got knocked out while getting ready in the shoot, which is, hate to see that happen, and speedy recovery to JB, but it's one of I don't get why guys don't have spotters, or I don't know if the guy was not.
There was a guy there
spotting him.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's one of those things that's such a preventable thing, because that's what started my whole concussion problems. Was I got knocked out in the shoot like that, and the guy who was spotting me wasn't paying attention. So it's I don't know what you need to do to you'd be really selective with who you get to help you on, but it's just that's the most dangerous place to be, and so much shit can go sideways there. And now who knows how long JB's going to be out for after just coming back.
Not ideal.
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't know what the motivation is on his side to keep trying to go when he's, what is he, 37 now?
Yeah.
I don't know how I don't know how to stay how some folks would stay motivated, but I guess even when we talked about this before, what do we got? 36 years old in the bull riding. Yeah, which isn't that old, but in bull riding it is older. And like what Max said in the show, what did we get to? Sorry. Some of the advice he got was that you can only be an athlete for a certain amount of years, and 36 is already getting to an elder statesman in the bull riding world. So I think it'd be tough to keep motivated at that age to keep going. But then again, I think when we talked to him about the show, what else does he know? That's what he knows.
What do you do? Yeah, that's just it.
So, and that's one conversation we never really got to with Melissa was life after sport. What does it look like? That's a whole nother conversation. Max is working in the oil field in Calgary, right?
Yeah. Well, and even Aaron Roy could be a similar example up in Canada. He's
true.
He's on the he's still riding and doing well. Can't doubt his ability, but it's just what things look like after, and what's the motivation to keep going now?
Yeah, I wonder. And Aaron, I forget what age he is off the top of the head. So he was 35 back in the fall. So he'll be 36 this year. Same age as JB. So I guess, but Aaron's also broke just as much or more of his body than JB too.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know. But I mean, still, if you can go to Houston, make the Final Four when you're 36, well,
still got it.
Or Adriano Moraes, what was he, 37 or 39 when he won his third world title?
Yeah, he was
$1 million then. So interesting.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing from that is just you got to be so careful with your with yourself and that kind of stuff. I think trying to do what you can to keep yourself safe, but it sucks seeing somebody you get hurt, not even in competition. So
in the
I
shoot.
don't know. For your young guys, always have a spotter.
Waste. There was one other thing too we were talking about. I've been watching The Last of Us, and I gotta say, pretty cool to see a lot of recognizable names in the stunt performers. So you got Jason Glass, truck wagon driver. Saw him in a bunch of the stunt in there doing stunts. Tommy Clark, somebody we got to get on the show still sometime. Chad Cosgrave, I think former truck wagon racer, isn't that right?
Yeah, it would be probably in the like related to Colt somehow like Colt Cosgrave. Yeah,
somewhere in there.
Yeah.
I don't know enough about it. I'm sorry. Tristan, Lindsay Woolsey, both in there as well.
Lindsay was talking about one of the scenes she was in. Yeah, it's cool.
Greg Slosher too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and
super
it's cool
neat
to see all the Alberta landscape too.
Yeah. Cowboy Country, Western Store in Nanton, the Ranchlands Hotel in Nanton. The Cowboy Country's at the end of episode 5. We saw that one the other night. Like the legislature building in Alberta and that main street going towards it. That was in one of the first.
The 4th Ave flyover in downtown Calgary.
And I kind of missed that part. I don't forget what that one is, unless it's further down. Like,
no, you see it in the first episode, I think.
Oh, okay, I missed that part then.
Yeah.
We've been like trying to pause it as we go, like, oh, this is so cool. Like, I can't even say that I really love the storyline or like the whole show. Like, I'm more interested in the geography and like seeing Calgary in the show.
Did you see the one where they had the scene where they were 10 miles west of Boston or something, and they were just like Rocky Mountains?
Yeah, that was good. The Appalachians look a little tall this morning.
They got roasted pretty hard for that one, but it is cool. It's cool to see the Alberta landscapes, and even now with like the award season, like hearing Pedro Pascal talk about his experience in Alberta and like speak so highly of being in Calgary and Edmonton and the people and all that kind of stuff. It's pretty, it makes a person proud to be from that part of the world.
I hope that season 2 is recorded here too. I don't know if it will or won't. Like, I don't know the deal if it is or not, but I hope it is here too. I think it's really neat.
Super cool. Maybe we can get you on as an extra.
Well, you know what? I was actually thinking about that with Amber. We got to bug Amber Marshall about a Cowboy Shit cameo of some sort.
Oh yeah,
on Heartland, like maybe this summer.
Gotta make it happen.
We'll just be like
Dale Brisby's cameo in Yellowstone.
Yeah,
just right. Just some beans.
Yeah, just eating some beans out there. Like Wacey and I can eat some beans on.
No, what we need to do here's the scene. They gotta do a scene at the Longview Bar on karaoke night, and you and I are singing karaoke while they're in Longview Bar.
Islands in the Stream or what?
me in Montana. Do any Enticing song or something?
That's true. Oh boy, that's funny.
But okay, anyways, back to The Last of Us. Pedro Pascal. There's a fucking petition going around Calgary to get Pedro Pascal as the parade marshal this year, which I think would be awesome.
That'd be the best move Stampede's made in a long time.
Yeah, because he can ride a horse. We know that. He has to ride a horse in The Last of Us.
Looked like he rode decent too. They were doubling. Yeah. They calling him out on something else. Riding fucking 5 days on one horse, 2 people. And should get called out on that too. That was That's later in this. Have you not got to that show?
I've kind of fell behind. I haven't started episode 5 yet, but I've seen the clips and stuff. Yeah, I've seen the clips.
I don't know if it was 6 or 7 or I don't know where we are, but one of the episodes I got to ride like 5 days on a horse and they fucking double. I'm like, I don't know if that part's legit. Like they have plenty of horses. Why the fuck didn't they both have a horse for a 5-day ride with 2 people doubling? Come on,
man. Come on. Repeat. The world's gone to shit. I guess people do crazy things.
Jordan Dodds too. I've heard about Jordan Dodds. He's in there as well. Canadian Finals Rodeo. I think both in the team roping and calf roping too. But it's super neat to see all those familiar names in there. And Jim Finkbeiner, Wacey's dad. Actually, I saw his name in there at one point too. Super cool. I thought it was really neat to see all these recognizable names in there.
There's a guy on Instagram. His handle's Davey Gravy. He's went around to all the locations in Alberta and like shown like the side-by-side clips from Last of Us and where they were. He was like went down to Fort McLeod and did all that kind of stuff. So if you're interested in checking that out, check his page out and you can see like all the videos and stuff. It's pretty neat.
Super cool. Well, Wacey, I don't know what else to say just besides thanks everybody for doing the show with us. It was a lot of fun. I think Pedro Pascal would be a great parade marshal if they could get him to do it. I think he probably would. Once again, I'm looking forward to not having to work at the Stampede this year. I think that's going to be awesome.
Yeah, Pitbull's playing Friday the 7th. I just saw.
I just saw that email.
Go see Mr. Worldwide, Teddy.
Mr. Worldwide. Hey, you're going to be around then too, aren't you?
Yeah, hell yeah.
Could both go to Pitbull. That'd be kind of an interesting show, wouldn't it?
Be crazy.
I'm probably gonna have way more fun not working this year.
Oh, for sure, man.
Oh, it's gonna be just like
no meetings to go to. You don't have to
stress reliever. You
don't have to like show up and catch up to people drinking after the evening show.
I just don't have to. I can just start in the morning.
Yes. Let her marinate all day.
We're gonna have like a real Stampede barbecue at the house after work.
Hit some
Yeah,
pancake breakfasts.
Be like kind of fun. So yeah, looking forward to that, man. I guess one thing that I thought was interesting today. We went to my chiropractor earlier, and I asked him like how old he was because we got talking about stuff, and he's like, yeah, I can't play. He plays beach volleyball actually, and he's like, yeah,
hell of a sport.
Yeah, he's like, I can't play beach volleyball more than once a week, and my body doesn't hold up. And I'm like, what? Like you're not that old, man. He's like, yeah, I'm pretty old. I'm like, oh, how old are you? Like you look like you're like 45. Like you're not that old. He's like, oh, I'm 52, and this guy's in really good shape. So yeah, I was kind of.
But have you told him about pickleball yet?
No, but he said that he lives without stress. Like as much as he can, he lives without stress. So I was like, oh, okay, so maybe that's a good call to like get rid of some stress. I remember my dad talked about that before too.
Do the things that do.
Yeah, the things you like. Yeah,
the things you like.
Yeah,
buddy.
There we are.
Okay. Have you been pickling lately?
No, I can't even get in any fucking classes at the Winter Club. It's fucking
That's a hell of a. But come out to you see the pickle facility here in Vernon. We get you out here and we'll just pickling.
Well, you're away when I'm there, you fucker. So
wow, it's a close flight.
Yeah, we'll make it work sometime. And then in the summertime, we'll get some games in. I'm working on some custom paddles with Bill. Gotta get those built up for us. So. Anyways, thanks again to Max Thompson lining this up. Alex Loutitt, thanks for the time. Melissa Hollingsworth, this is a heck of a show. Wacey, thank you. As always, we'll catch up with you all next time. Once again, it's been Cowboy Shit with Ted and Wacey. I'm Ted, he's Wacey. Thank you for listening, folks.
Oh, brother, let's go down. Let's go down. Won't you come on down now? Oh, brother, let's go down. Down to the river to play. No satisfaction for this bastard child. You got me running in circles by the fire while going face to face with a dead end road. The devil said I couldn't hang around anymore. Oh, my tears could fill a bucket with sin. I wondered had I fallen into the mess that I'm in. So I came to the world and everything that it's got. Thought I had a handle, but the handle got hot. I went down to the river to pray, studying about that good old way. And who shall wear the robe and crown? Good Lord, won't you show me the way? And oh, brother, let's go down. Let's go down. Won't you come on down now? Oh, brothers, let's go down. Down to the